Hey, horror fans, welcome back to Jay versus Horror. Guys, let me know if you can hear me or not because I don't know. Just sometimes my computer acts a little funny. And yeah, it's not the computer. I'll be honest with you. It's me. It's not the computer, right? But yeah. So let me know if you can hear me, if you can't hear me, any of that stuff. Now, tonight, guys, we're doing something different. Usually on Monday, we do 5 free films, right? And we're kind of starting to try to move away from that and do some other shows. So tonight we're doing horror hot takes, guys. We went to the J versus Horror group on Facebook where we have about 26,000 members right now, getting close to 27,000. And we put the question out there. Give us your horror hot takes. Give us an unpopular horror opinion, and we'll discuss it with the fans, right? And we got Willis. Willis Wheeler is up. Hey, Jay, he says, "What's up, Willis? I hope you can hear me, man." Uh, so yeah, we got 120 comments. So we got a lot to go through, guys, and I need your input because this is where the fun part starts. We're gonna reveal everyone's unpopular horror opinions, and then we're gonna let you guys give us some comments here live about what you think about those opinions. So maybe you have some unpopular opinions about unpopular opinions. So let's get started, guys. Let's move over here and start with. I guess I'm going to start at the top. That's fair, right? The first person that commented should get to go first. Let's see. It's 121 comments now, so it's taking a little while to go back here. And Willis, your comment is the first one that I saw there, but it skipped back on me. So let's get started. Our first comment comes from Emily Dunlap, and she says, I detest most of the Halloween franchise and everything Rob Zombie has ever done besides The Devil Rejects. I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm not a big fan of the Halloween films. Look, I went and saw the first one at the theater, and I didn't like the setup for the Michael Myers thing. I didn't like the textbook, psychopath setup for Michael Myers. I always liked it that we didn't know why he did what he did. And if you make him just like Bundy or any of those other serial killers that have the same background, then you have to ask yourself what makes him different than those people. But as far as Halloween 2 goes, I'm kind of the opposite with Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie. I like that opening sequence. That is the one that has, I think her name's Octavia Spencer in the beginning of it. Such a great sequence, man. One of the best chase scenes in the whole franchise. And then the movie just kind of fell flat for me after that. We got Aaron Flamet says, hello, good evening. George Rogers, guys. George is pretty damn awesome. George runs a James Bond podcast. You guys need to check that out. How's it going, Jay? How's it going, George? And Stephen Morgan says, howdy. So let's move on. Emily has a couple here, right? Her next one says, she talks about she liked Halloween 2, the original sequel, H2O, and I was all right with the newest Halloween that came out in 2018, I think. She also says that she thinks that Jamie Lee Curtis is a weak final girl, and I've talked to her about this before, especially in that first film. Now, I don't know if she's a weak final girl in H2O or if she's even a final girl, if you can call her that at that age. But yeah, her character gets much stronger as it goes, kind of like uh, I'm just blanked on the name, Linda Hamilton in Terminator, right? She gets stronger with each movie, and so yeah. Marsha Pluchek's watching. She says, hey, Jay. So let's check it out. We got one more here from Emily. She says rewatchability is a very important factor for her when she rates movies and how she thinks about them. They can be terrible movies, but if they have good rewatchability, I'd watch them any day. This is absolutely Emily all day long because we talk slashers all the time, and Emily will hit you with some slashers. You think you've seen every slasher, Emily will hit you with one you've never seen before. Trust me. And you'll go watch it, and you'll think, I get it a little bit. It's not a great movie, but there's a charm to it or something like that. So let's move on. Our next comment comes from Alyssa Sanchez. I know a lot of people enjoy it, but I couldn't stand the My Bloody Valentine remake with Jensen Ackles. They swapped the original killer with the good guy, and I don't think it was necessary. Spoiler alert at all. I loved a ton of scenes, but that just wasn't fair to the original. I kind of get that. I like the movie. I think it's just, when you look at the other remakes, Uh, it's a pretty good remake. I mean, there's a lot of bad remakes, right? So if you judge it by other remakes, I think it's a pretty good remake. But just looking at it independently, I don't know how great it is. I enjoyed it, but I understand what she's saying about the twist ending, and she says it really bothers me when an important part of the story differs from the source material. I'm all for creative freedom, but when you alter a character's origin or the outcome of a story like they did with Chucky, I just can't enjoy it. Maybe I'm stubborn. I don't know. A lot of people are that way. I mean, I understand it. I like the new Child's Play movie too. I did. It sucks. I mean, I don't understand why they can't just call it, Child's Play. Make it a universe movie instead of making it exactly. It has to be Chucky. They could have just called that doll Buddy and put it in the Child's Play universe and created a new story for a new character, right? They didn't have to go back to calling him Chucky and all that. And that would be the only problem I had with that movie. I liked it. I thought, the gore was in it. And what really surprised me with the new Child's Play movie was the humor. They had some good humor in there. Oh, it's Scott Workman. Scott Workman says hi. He's posting it under his alias, Movie Drive. That's cool. A lot of people have aliases on YouTube, right? And she says if she remembers correctly, they all knew that there was something bad in the box already, so he opened it with gloves, didn't read a card or anything. The feel was just so different from the original, man. Yeah, it was a totally different movie. Moving on, we have Steve Morgan. Steve says Friday the 13th Part 5 was good, even though it didn't have Jason in it. It had the same tone as the first four. Part 6 was ridiculous. Jason with the utility belt and gloves. Come on, man. Oh, Steve, I can't agree with you there, man. Now, I'll give you that Part 5. I don't hate Part 5. It's so stupid that they tried to do this thing with Roy, the paramedic, make him into Jason. I don't hate that, but the director of that movie, why did they keep shooting back to Roy? There was no reason for Roy. They should have created a reason for Roy to be in this movie other than being a paramedic, because I never understood how Roy was a paramedic in this town. His son is at this, juvenile camp, and nobody knows that's his kid. And why isn't Roy taking care of his kid? By the way, he's got a good job. And I love Part 6, man. That's my favorite Friday the 13th. Willis Wheeler says that's his favorite too. I just like it when they say "fuck it," man. It's zombie Jason. We're not trying to pull any punches anymore. We're in Jason Lives. Part 6 is the quintessential 80s Jason movie. It's got Alice Cooper. It's got that whole feel, man. I love it a lot. But yeah, so Willis says, I love Part 6. That's my favorite. It's my favorite too. Part 2 is good. I can't say anything bad about that. A lot of the OGs out there love Part 1. But yeah, Part 6 is where I love it, man. And Scott says Jason Lives is so far from ridiculous. Look, they're all ridiculous, right? We got a guy who essentially comes back 13 times or 12 times. I can't remember. If you add all the fan movies together, it's probably 125. This guy comes back from the dead. You cannot kill him. Even when you saw his head open, he's still coming back. And what were they going to do? They're going to keep killing Jason and not killing him. I think the zombie Jason thing was the way to go. I liked it. I don't know. And then they added to that lore a little bit with Jason versus Freddy, right? So the next one comes from Chris Beerholm. He says, I think that despite its social commentary, Get Out from Jordan Peele steals a lot of its premise from the Skeleton Key. Well, I don't know if he stole it from the Skeleton Key, but there's definitely similarities there, right? I always felt like Get Out was just a really long episode of The Outer Limits. That's what it felt like to me. Just a really long episode of The Outer Limits. And then the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes, they add some gore. A little bit of gore, and that kind of takes it into the horror realm. I liked Get Out. I didn't hate it. I don't think it's Oscar worthy. I thought that was ridiculous. It's almost like a condescending put down or something when you say, oh, this is the greatest, we're going to give this an Oscar. Well, we don't have to get into all that, why they did that. I think we all know why. They were in trouble from the year before for excluding a bunch of people, so they decided to add a bunch of people, or to add this movie. I like Get Out. I think it's a good movie. I would take Get Out over Us any day. But yeah, it's interesting how that worked out. And you're right. I've seen Skeleton Key 10 times, and it never really dawned on me that they were so similar. Uh, so let's look at some of our comments here on the live. Aaron Fleming says Friday the 13th, part 9. That would be Jason Goes to Hell. It's an interesting one. I like the opening where the guy eats the heart. It makes me want to puke every time I watch it. Friday the 13th, part 5, says Marsha Palushek. Jason takes, she's joking around. Friday the 13th, part 528, Jason takes your anus. Jason ain't taking my anus. I can tell you right now. If he tries to take my anus, we're going to have a fight like him and Julian had in part 8. I would rather have my head knocked off than to have my anus taken by a 6'5" zombie. And Aaron Fleming says Ash from the Evil Dead films. Not sure what that's in reference to, but okay. Ryan Wilcox is up next, man. Ryan comments a lot. Wilcox. I said Wilcox. Wilcox. Ryan comments a lot, and he's in the group a lot. He's very active, and just a great, wealth of knowledge. He says, I got two for you. Dawn of the Dead is the most overrated horror movie ever. And you guys, you're going to hear this a lot tonight because I've read through these comments already. And one of the ones that kind of like tripped me out was that several people said Dawn of the Dead was the most overrated horror film of all time. And, that it was nothing compared to the other Dead movies and stuff like that. I don't hate Dawn of the Dead, but I will be honest with you. It's my least favorite of the original trilogy, right? I'm a Day of the Dead guy. I like that one. I like the whole military setup there and the effects and everything. 1 second. I had to turn my heat off. It got too hot here. All these questions, man. Whew. All right. So yeah, Dawn of the Dead. He says that he feels like it's basically just Night of the Living Dead in color, and he also said that he feels like the Babadook is just a terrible movie. I'm going to agree with you on Babadook too. I never got the appeal of Babadook. I mean, I saw that movie. I mean, I understand it. It's not like it slipped past me or anything, but to me, when I started watching that movie, I'm like 5-10 minutes into it, and I know how it's going to end. It just like it's all over it, right? You can see how it's going to end, and you're just waiting till the end of the movie for them to tell you that you were right. Yep, that's what it is. That's what's going on here. And I will tell you what, if you don't like Babadook, I got a suggestion for you. Go watch The Canal. I felt like The Canal from like 2011 or maybe 2014. I'm sorry, around the same time Babadook. It's an Irish horror film, and it does what the Babadook does just a lot better. I thought it's not the same thing. Don't get me wrong; it's not the same story, but it is very similar, and I thought they did a whole lot better with that film. And Aaron said the reason why he mentioned Ash was he's not sure why they never made Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, which was the natural progression from Freddy versus Jason because they did make the comic book Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and that's a fun read if you guys ever get a chance to check it out. I read those; they're fun. And Marcia says, "Laugh my ass off," but yeah, kind of the same I felt about the Hellraisers. They just milked it way too long. And Willis Wheeler said, I don't like Dawn of the Dead. I like the remake way better. You know what? I like the remake way better too. And it's not something I'm willing to like. I'm not going to die on that hill. You know what I mean? If other people like Dawn, the original, then that's fine with me. That's not something that I'm willing to argue about with people. But yeah, I personally, if I'm going to rewatch one of them, I'm going to rewatch the remake, right? Barrett Gordon says Friday 13th, the final chapter should have been just that, the final chapter. The series went downhill with Zombie Jason, especially when Kane Hodder assumed the role. It went from bad to worse. Barrett, ooh, you're asking for it, man, right? Like these guys are going to get you, dude. Look, I understand that way of thinking because it is a logical conclusion to the story, and it keeps it. Actually, if you stop at 4, I think it keeps it from being just Jason, right? Most people remember that series as just Jason. They don't remember that the first film is a whodunit where nobody knows who the killer is. The second film is kind of a whodunit. You think it's Jason, but you're not 100% sure. They've tricked us before. And then, in 3 and 4, which I think 3 is kind of a misstep for me. It's an iconic film because it's where he finds the mask and all that, but it's just not my favorite. I think 4 was the better of those two, definitely, and it was a good place to end, but I'm glad they went on with it. As far as you're never going to hear me complain about movies, guys, like that, because as far as I'm concerned, if they make 127 of them or 528, like Marcia said, I'm gonna watch it. That's gonna be me. I'm gonna be there at the theater with my walker, getting my ticket to go see Jason 528. And let's look at our comments here. Marcia says, even I like the remake better, and I'm usually an original girl. And George Rogers says, Kane had some brutal kills. Rest in peace, Julius. Yeah, Kane had some brutal kills, man. Like, that's the best thing about the back end of that franchise is kills. They really upped the game. And the truth is, we may never know how good some of those kills were because Paramount were such dicks that whenever the MPAA cut stuff, they just threw it in the dumpster. They didn't hold on to it for later usage. So now we have Ken Craver. Ken's a good friend. He says, I don't like Stephen King. Well, man, I understand. Like, not everybody likes everything, right? I'm real careful about what I say about stuff, because like some people have huge fan bases that will attack you, right? And Stephen King is one of those guys. His fan bases will rip you to shreds. And I'm a huge Stephen King fan of the stuff I like from Stephen King. He has written books that I've read that I couldn't get through, man. I know everybody likes Insomnia. I read Insomnia, and it wasn't Insomnia for me. I can tell you that. It put my ass right to sleep several times. And that was one I couldn't get into. Duma Key was another one where I tried to read. I just couldn't get into it. But like Full Dark, No Stars, Doctor Sleep, going all the way back to Carrie. He's had a lot of hits. Look, I like Stephen King. If I've got a month where I just want to flip a few pages here, read 50 pages here, I love Stephen King. But man, if I want to read something, if I want to jolt, I'm getting me a Dean Koontz book, man, because it's like 350 pages. I can read it in a day. And all Dean Koontz books start out with like, she got in the car, a man put a knife to her throat, and the dog's losing it. Benny, quit. You're live. What are you doing? He's losing it because the neighbor's out on the porch. But yeah, anyway, moving on. Tony Kanopka says foreign horror films are superior to U.S. releases. I don't know, Tony. Like, I can't just say that as like a definitive statement, man, because we make some good movies here in the U.S. They're few and far between because we make so many bad ones to go along with the good ones, right? But I watched a lot of foreign horror films in 2020 from like India and Indonesia, and man, all these other countries are massively producing horror movies now. The thing was, so many of them seem such the same that I couldn't tell them apart. Like there was a few of like the setups, the plots were the same, and it was really hard for me to figure out which one was which. When I went back to think about it for my year-end list, I was like, which one was this? Which one was that? And it was very difficult. I liked Impetigore a lot. That was one from 2020 that I enjoyed a lot. I'll tell you guys, if you want to check out a really freaky movie from 2020, Coco D, Coco Da. Check that out. It's about a group of nursery rhyme characters that rape and murder people. So yeah, it was an interesting film, and it's also about a couple that's trapped in a like time loop thing where they keep going through this traumatic event of getting murdered by these nursery rhyme characters. So it's very interesting. Let's see what else we got here. Benny's not having it, man. He's mad. He doesn't like the neighbor. I don't know. It's an older woman. She comes out on her porch, and whenever she comes out on her porch across the street, he can hear her voice, and he gets insanely annoyed by it. I don't know why. Marcia says, I hated Gerald's Game. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that one either. I tried to read that too. And back when I was a cop and I was working, when I first, I started a new job at a county, and the first thing they made you do at that place was you had to work in the jail for 6 months, right? And that's boring as shit, especially overnights when you're in there, like when everybody's locked down and there's nothing going on. So yeah, I tried to read Gerald's Game. I always tell people I tried to read it in jail, but I wasn't actually in jail. I was just stuck there. And but yeah, I tried to read that. I couldn't get through it. I actually read one of the damn True Blood books. I remember reading one of the True Blood books while I was in there. Terrible, right? Next comes from Alex Pachiccio. If I mess up your name, guys, I'm terrible at names, so give me a little bit of a break there. This is another one I've heard quite a bit in here, and it's going to piss some people off, right? Uh, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the most overrated garbage in all of horror. I don't even like these words coming out of my mouth. Reading. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the most overrated garbage in all of horror. It has maybe 20 minutes of story stretched out way too far, nothing but terrible, annoying characters you can't possibly give a shit about. Camera lingers on nothing for minutes at a time because it has nothing of substance to pad out its runtime. Well, this goes on. And all the while, the soundtrack just constantly blares straight up noises at you. Those are supposed to be disorienting, right? And they're also supposed to like creep you out a little bit. Leatherface is an idiotic villain, and frankly, they are going. If you're going to title your film "The Texas Chainsaw Massacre," you expect them to kill more than one person with the actual chainsaw. It's more like the Texas Tiny Hammer Massacre. How the hell that utter shit ever became, let alone stayed popular, is beyond me. Wow, Alex, tell us how you really feel, buddy. Right? I mean, don't hold back. Look, I can't agree with that. I see the value in Texas, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think there is a certain amount of artistry in the cinematography of that movie that you're never going to see again. There are things. Yeah, it's a cheap movie, man. They made it for nothing. Like they made it with mob money, right? And a lot of people didn't even get paid because the whole thing ended up being like a scam and all that stuff. But I still like the movie, and I like Toby. Toby was smart, man. He did everything he did on purpose. Similar to like Hitchcock. I'm not saying he's as good as Hitchcock, but Toby went to the MPAA before he started trying to put the film out and asked them, "Can I do this? Can I do that? Where can I do this? Should I do?" And that's how he got the film over. And I think it was pretty smart, like the way he did it. It's one of those films that's just like Psycho, even though you think it's not anything like Psycho. They're both kind of based on Ed Gein in a sense, and they also both make you think you've seen a lot when you really haven't seen much at all, right? And so we are moving on to our next one. Let's stop here for a minute and read some comments. Confidential source says, I like Gerald's game, the book and the film. I thought the film was pretty faithful to the book, including the reference to Dolores Claiborne. I love Dolores Claiborne, and it's actually like not scary, right? But it's one of my favorite Stephen King's. And Aaron says, I like the film Leatherface with Dennis Hopper. I think you mean Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. That's the one that had Dennis Hopper in it. Leatherface was part 3 that had Ken Foray in it. And then they made another Leatherface in 2017 that was made by the guys who did Inside, which I love those guys, but I didn't get it. That one was cast well. It was a pretty movie. It had its moments, but I didn't understand it in the concept of the franchise. It just didn't work for me. If they'd have named that movie Psycho Asylum Breakout and left the Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff out of it, would have been a much stronger film, in my opinion. Steve Morgan says, Aaron also said that he likes the 74 version. Steve Morgan says, new generation is not as bad as people say. That's a hot take right there, Steve. I will agree with you on that, right? So it's pretty bad in spaces, but there's also some good stuff in there. And I think the family stuff is good. Matthew McConaughey kills it, man. You got Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger in this movie, and they both are future Oscar winners, right? And you can tell in the film they are so far away from everyone else that's in the movie, right? They're like way above, beyond anybody else in the movie as far as acting. And so yeah, maybe rewrite that. There's a lot of dumb characters in the movie. That's why it gets weighed down. Like some of the kids are dumb, and then like there's a girl in the family. I don't remember what her relation to is to the rest of them this time, but she was just dumb to me too. So I don't know. But yeah, it's not the worst movie of all time. Hey, and when it comes to franchises, guys, like Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, Friday the 13th, I love all of them. I don't care. I don't care how bad they are. I love all of them because they're part of it. So, yeah, Willis says, big hot take from Alex. Alex it feels like Alex needed that, man. I'm glad we provided him that because I feel like Alex needed to get that off his chest. That was a hardcore one right there. George says, good Lord, that dude teed off on Texas Chainsaw. Yes, he did. He went to town on Texas Chainsaw. And don't stop watching because the next one's just as bad. Not just as bad, but I think it's you're gonna enjoy it. And Marcia says, Steven, I love that one. Laugh my ass off. Okay. Josh O'Neill. The Exorcist is such an overrated film. This guy had people on the post saying they were going to report his comments for saying that, right? Now, I don't get that one because I'm going to be honest with you guys. For me, and it's not because it's popular with everyone else, The Exorcist is one of my favorite films of all time. Not even just horror, but all time, one of my favorite films. Scared me as a kid. And, you know, it's one of those films I've probably seen, I'd say I've seen it more than 50 times, somewhere between 50 and 100. And I'll go back and revisit it at least once a year. And for me, I get something different out of that film every time I watch it. I'll catch something new, some new theory or idea or theme. And the thing is, like, for me, The Exorcist is more than a horror film. It's like a discussion about theology, about religion, about all this stuff. And I like the film because it actually, in my opinion, takes the time to question itself. And there's some stuff that got cut out of that movie. Not that they wanted to cut it, but they had a problem with the audio. They were filming at Arlington Cemetery with Reagan and the mom, and there's like a whole 5-minute scene that explains a lot of stuff that got just dropped from the film because they didn't realize they screwed it up until they went into post production. Aaron says the Texas Chainsaw with Matthew McConaughey. Yeah. Aaron also says Linda Blair original. Steve Morgan says, I like Exorcist 3 better than 1, even though 1 was really good. And George says The Exorcist is a bit of a slow burn, but I love that build up to the exorcism itself. Now, I over the years have heard other people complain about the movie. Regina won't watch it. And Regina, my wife, she would rather watch a Serbian film than The Exorcist. She hates that movie because of the way they go with Reagan, the way that she takes it too far. Regina feels like The Exorcist is just a shock film disguised as pretentious art. And so I don't even watch it around her because I don't want to put her in a bad mood, right? But I understand some of that. Yeah, did they go too far? Yes, a little bit. But I think the reason why they did that was they wanted to show you that they wanted to hit you with a force of evil. This is so evil that, you know, it would do this to this little girl and make her say these things and do these things. You know, I saw an interview with, I think it's here on YouTube too, if you guys want to look it up, with not William Friedkin, with William Peter Blatty, the guy that wrote The Exorcist, right? Went on to direct Exorcist 3. And he said his problem with the original Exorcist was that they took events in his book, which he felt were supernatural, and changed them to a point where they were unnatural. And that there's a difference between supernatural. Supernatural is something that doesn't usually happen without something else affecting it, but could still possibly happen, right? And unnatural is a little girl's head turning 360 degrees around and not breaking her neck or hurting her body, right? So I understood that. And I understand people who don't love The Exorcist, but for me, man, it's one of my top 10 films of all time. One of my, I got to say probably top 5. For me, I'm thinking 3 is the number that comes to my mind. But yeah, so Josh says, thank you. I've always thought this, and that's great, man. I mean, that's what this is about. Everybody get it out. Get it out. Let the hate flow. Let it flow through you, right? And Joyce says The Exorcist is a bit of a slow burn, but yeah, we read that. Okay. Willis. We made it to Willis. All right, man. Willis Wheeler says Ari Aster is a hack. Midsummer and Hereditary are a waste of damn time. Well, man, I'm on the fence about Ari, to be honest with you. Like, have you guys seen his original film, The Strange Things About the Johnsons? Yeah, I got it here on the YouTube channel. If you've never seen it, go check it out. It's about 30 minutes long. It's a film he made in college. And that is the moment where I started watching this guy. When that came out, when that hit the internet, first time I saw it, I started watching this guy because I was like, damn, that's some rough stuff right there. That is that movie has some scenes in it that you will never forget. I'll put it like that. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but yeah, watch with caution if you watch This Strange Thing About the Johnsons. But then he goes on from there and he does, Hereditary and then Midsummer. And look, I like those movies. I think each one of them has some really great moments in it. but the films are weighed down by it. Ari's one of these guys who wants his style to be stamped on the movie, and he wants it so bad that you feel like you're just watching this guy masturbate for long periods of the movie, right? It's just like him going, "Oh, look at what I created! It's so beautiful," and it's all just about the stylistic. You have all these great moments in the film, and you're drawing out parts to it. Hereditary has some logic problems to it. The fact that a cult could set all this stuff up that happens to them, like the accident that happens to the little girl, nobody could set that up, right? That was just an accident. Uh, there's there's other things that happen in the movie that logically, like when you look at it, you think. When I was watching it in the theater, I was like, that chick is in a cult. She's in a cult. She's stalking you. You know what I mean? You're yelling at the screen or wanting to. And Midsummer, I think, is just it's a good horror film, but it's a little bit too packed full of, like I said, the stylistic stuff, all the cult stuff and all that. I will say this: Ari likes head trauma, apparently, and he showed it in both those films, and I enjoy those scenes, man. I'm a gore hound myself. I like stuff like that, and there were shocking scenes in Hereditary and Midsummer that made me go, "Oh," like that. I'm not gonna lie, and I enjoy those moments, but the overall films, yeah, I think he's still maybe trying to. I don't think he's made his masterpiece yet. Let's say that. Let's look at some of our comments here. Willis says, "My mom went to see it opening weekend, and she did say some people were actually passing out because of the movie. And when her head turned, she said she laughed at it. The Exorcist, yeah, there were people laughing. There's a great story there. Oh, Ellen Bernstein, who plays the mom, right? I think that's her name, right? She ended up being in Requiem for a Dream later on. And there's a great story from her where she says she snuck into a screening, and there was a lady who stood up in an aisle and started screaming and passed out. And she's like, I was standing, like a couple feet from her. She's like, so I rushed over there to try to help her. And she's like, the lady woke up, looked at the screen, and she's like, when she looked at the screen, Ellen Bernstein's character was on the screen, and then she looked over and Ellen Bernstein was standing there in front of her, and she instantly passed out again. So yeah, that was great. There's not a lot of levity when it comes to The Exorcist. There's not a lot of humor surrounding that. Even like the whole curse thing about the movie and all that stuff, and all the things that Linda Blair went through. It's very traumatic and all that stuff. But it's nice to hear at least one funny story about The Exorcist, right? But back to Ari Aster. Yeah, I'm interested in Ari. I like to see what he's doing, and I can't wait to see what he does next. But I'm not gonna just. I'm like Willis. I can't say he's the greatest of all time, or him or Jordan Peele at this point. They have to make their bones. They made a couple decent movies now. Let's see if they can keep that going, because if they're anything like John and Wes, they haven't made their masterpiece yet. So we'll see. Let's move on. Christopher Bickle says, outside of the amazing score and set design, Suspiria is pretty hokey. It is. Okay. I mean, like, I got to tell you guys, it's something I never really talked about, but for me, Suspiria is on the low end of the top 10 Argento films. It's not his best story. And, all the other things about it work, though, right? I can't remember the lead actress's name right off the top. That's going to aggravate me because she was just in a Tales from the Crypt I watched the other day. Jessica something, I can't remember. Jennifer something. You guys will hit me up with it, right? But anyway, so there's a good performance. The score is good. It's haunting, and you have to give credit to Argento. Nobody can out Argento, man. His I guess you would call it set design, yeah. But for me, it's just everything. His camera work, everything he does is on point. And yeah, to me, that does really make the movie worth watching, because there's some good kills in it, or some interesting kills in it. But when we got towards the end, I think I like the new Suspiria a little bit more with this story. And then over here we have Movie Drive, as Scott says, I like The Exorcist even though Freak can block me on Twitter. Oh, wow. Yeah, that can happen. Aaron Flement says, was Psycho good? The part was good, but never understood part 4. Okay. You mean Psycho 4 the beginning? It's basically just Bates Motel, the abridged version. It's like an hour of that, right? And then you get another 35 minutes of Anthony Perkins talking on the phone to CCH Pounder. Aaron says, I like Stephen King's Salem's Lot. Yeah, I like Stephen King. I even like the 2004 Salem's Lot, Rob Lowe. That's how much I like Salem's Lot. Queen Bodisha Radiant says, I saw the first one a few years ago, but Exorcist 3 is the one that really scared me to death. Jessica Harper. Thank you so much, Scott. Jessica Harper. Why couldn't I think of that last name? It was driving me nuts. She's in the Tales from the Crypt with the Siamese twins too. So, and I've seen her in a couple other things too lately, which is odd. But yeah, Exorcist 3. Yeah, I agree. Like, okay, maybe it's because of this reason, but The Exorcist 3 is the one, like Regina, when I first got her to watch it, because she hates The Exorcist so much, it took a while to get her to watch The Exorcist Part 3. And then I had to answer the question of, why don't you want to watch The Exorcist Part 2 before we watch Part 3? I'm like, you don't need Part 2. You don't need that. So when I got her to watch it, she fucking loved Exorcist Part 3. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. That movie is terrifying too, Exorcist Part 3. In my opinion, Exorcist Part 3, and Psycho 2 are probably my two favorite sequels. I know Aliens is good. Texas Chainsaw 2 is pretty good. I like that. I like Friday the 13th Part 6. I like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And I also like New Nightmare. But for me, I think it's pretty much, hold on, we got another one here. Yeah, it's pretty much Exorcist and Psycho. Exorcist 3 and Psycho 2 are my favorite sequels. Ben Quine. I'm just trying to figure out how to say that last name, dude. Ben Quine. Salutations, Jay. And George Rogers says Suspiria is a great visual movie. That's right, George. That's exactly what I was trying to spit out there. It's a great visual movie, and you can't outdo Dario Argento. That's why I was happy with the new Suspiria. They didn't try that. They didn't try to replicate it. They tried to just take a little bit of that story and stretch it a little further. And Queen Budisha Radiant says, imagery in Suspiria is super freaky, though. It's the visuals that are scary, right? Aaron says, Night of the Demons. Was that a good horror film? Think they remade. I don't know. Did they remake Night of the, They might have done it. I think they did do it. Didn't they do a cheesy version of it with like Edward Furlong or something like 11 years ago? I don't remember, but yeah, I don't remember it because it wasn't good. But yeah, Queen Bodisha says that she likes the original Suspiria better. Steve says he loves the original Suspiria and the remake. Ben says Suspiria Remake, and he also says Exorcist 3 is a masterpiece. And Scott says Brad Dourif kills it in Exorcist 3. Yeah, man. I mean, that is such a cool thing, too, because originally they just wanted to use Jason Miller in that, right? And Jason's a stage actor. He's always been a more prolific stage actor than a film actor, And so he was actually in production that was ongoing while they wanted to film, but they didn't cut him out. They just brought Brad Dourif in and played it, as one at this point when he's the Gemini killer. It's Brad, right? And when he's Father Karras, it's Jason Miller. And there's a little overlap, right? Because Miller does there's different cuts to that film too because of that, right? Oh yeah, Ben says it's pronounced Kane. Okay, Ben, sorry about that. And here we go. Willis Wheeler. Willis Wheeler's up again. He says Babadook is the worst movie ever. I don't know if it's the worst movie ever, but I couldn't get to it, man. I mean, after the first time, I couldn't rewatch it. That's for sure. I mean, the first time I was just like wanting it to end so bad, and then when it got over with, I was like, yeah, I've never watched that again. That kid is like the perfect they should show that movie to kids when they're like 12 years old in high school, because you'll never have sex if you think you're going to have a kid like that, right? The kid screaming and hollering through the whole film. I know everything in the movie is done the way it's done to get us to the end of the movie, right? And the kid being so annoying and being so fucking out of control and just never hit a kid in my life, but I never wanted to more than that kid, right? And I think that it's all part of the plan, though, right? It's part of the plan. It's just too annoying to sit through more than once for me. So let's move on. Here we go. Willis again. He's got a couple more takes. He got one here. Mike Flanagan is a very one-note director. I don't know, man. I don't feel like I like Mike Flanagan. I just don't like him as much as everybody else does. I don't feel like he really has a style. Like, when I'm watching, if there are some directors where I could watch their movie without knowing they directed it, and I could tell you about 25 minutes into it, you know, this is a so and so film. I can't do that with Mike Flanagan because his films, he'll take any job, or he would for a long time. And but I'll tell you what, I gotta say, man, I think he stepped it up in the last couple of years, and I really think Doctor Sleep is it's probably my favorite movie of that year, 2018 or 19, whichever one it was that came out. I think 19. Uh, I love that movie, man, because I love the book so much, and I really like the way, even though they changed the end of the book, or they changed the end of the movie. It's different from the end of the book, right? But so is the original Shining, and I like this one because I loved going back to the Overlook Hotel and seeing all that. And, I really enjoyed it. In the book, the Overlook's not there; it's burned to the ground, right? So it's just like a campsite or something. I can't exactly remember what they called it. Um, George says Brad Dourif doesn't get enough praise for his acting. I'm pretty sure he was nominated for an Oscar for Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah, man, Brad's been in everything, and he's been left out of a lot. That performance is awesome, but I got to say my favorite performance from him is Exorcist 3. Of course, he's great, as the voice of Chucky, and he always pops up in weird stuff too, like Graveyard Shift from Stephen King, and there's a movie called Trauma from Argento that's shot in Toronto, has a bunch of Italian actors in it, has the effects done by Tom Savini, and then all of a sudden Brad Dourif just shows up as like a cameo or something. I think we would call it a cameo now. Back then, he was still pretty underappreciated, so he was just trying to get work. Uh, Ben says, "Do you read any of the adapted books? I read Children of the Corn recently and was pleasantly surprised." Yeah, that book, Children of the Corn, is very different, isn't it? Um, Village of the Damned, those kids had powers. The Shining was good. The Shining, I couldn't sleep after that. Not kidding. Says Queen Budisha. That and Burnt Offerings, the scariest for me. Burnt Offerings sticks with me. I don't know why. It didn't really like terrify me as a kid, but it stuck with me. Uh, and Willis also said he thought that the Suspiria remake was 10 times better than the original. I can't go 10 times better, but I can say this: the story is more rich than the original, and I like how they didn't try to do the. I don't know, like a lot of times with Argento, you have like this neon light feel, right? Like the atmosphere is lit in these weird colors and stuff, and the Suspiria remake is very baroque. It almost feels like a '70s movie that's a different style of movie. But moving on. Wow. Lefay Fred Bornjornsson. That sounds like a Swedish name. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. He said, I hate it when studios swipe each other's concepts and release very similar movies at the same time to get an edge on the competition and dilute the marketplace. Worst of all are studios like Asylum who release mostly cheap knockoff movies with similar titles and artwork. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I never understood. It used to happen to me a lot, or I thought it happened a lot when I was a kid because I'm sure you guys remember like Deep Star 6 when Deep Star 6 came out, and then they had the which one was it? I think Deep Star 6 came first, or Leviathan. Leviathan probably came first, or maybe Leviathan and Deep Star 6 were the same year, maybe '89. But and then like the next year or the year after that, it was The Abyss, right? And so you had like three competing movies at the same time, and they do that a lot in Hollywood. Remember when they had that movie? Dante's Peak with Pierce Brosnan, and in the same year they had Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones. It's like I don't understand. Like those concepts aren't so solid that it's like, oh, we got to get it. Volcanoes have been around for thousands of years. You don't have to jump on the bandwagon just because everybody else is. You can wait a few years and make a Volcano movie, and it'll still be appreciated. Yeah, they do that a lot, though. That's a good observation. And Ben Kane says Suspiria gave me a 70s meets 40s vibe. Yeah, man, I'll agree with that. And Aaron said he want to know if he ever saw the Prowler horror film. Hell yeah, man, that's a good one. I love the crappy band in the Prowler. That's one of my favorite things about it. Uh, Queen says I am finding vintage movies to be far superior to new films. I can hardly watch new horror after discovering the old stuff. I can't say that, man. Like I like them all. I like them all. I think there's good films from every era. You just have to look, and maybe not always just take the ones that are on the surface. Like If you look through the 90s, you're going to see Scream, Dusk Till Dawn, stuff like that. Those are good films. I love them. But there's stuff buried down there that you need to watch that's still pretty good. And I think it's like that in every decade. And I honestly believe that, like, from 2008, from around the time we had the big French Extreme, they were doing it a little bit before that. So I guess it would be like 2007 with Inside and then Martyrs and stuff like that. If you look at that period, because we go from there to the J horror movies and the Asian horror movies, and then you have an explosion back here in the U.S. We get a ton of films, man. There's been a ton of films since 2009 here in the U.S. that are freaking quality films, guys. I Starry Eyes from 2014, The Witch, The Woman. I could go on and on all night. That I really think there are some strong films in the last decade and a half. A little less than 13 years, especially from foreign horror. I think they've really blossomed. I mean, it used to be where I would watch films and I would have to watch about 75 films a year to make a top 20 list, and about 10 of those films would be foreign. Now it's like I have to watch about 300 to 400 films a year, and maybe 100 of them are foreign. So they've really come into their own, and that's great. I love it. We need a little bit more from some of the Brits. I would say they're falling behind all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it seems like the Irish and Scottish horror movies have started to surpass the British horror movies. So we need you guys to pick it up a little bit over there. There's some good British horror films. People just don't talk about them. There's Doghouse and Mum and Dad, and Inbred, and tons of. There's some good stuff over there, especially like when you start talking about Ben Wheatley and guys like that, Kill List and stuff like that. There's some great horror films over there. But Kill List may be Irish. I don't know. I haven't looked it up. George says, my mom loved Deep Star 6, but I think it was because she liked Greg Evigan. Yeah. I re-rented Deep Star 6 a while back. It's been a few years ago, but rewatched it. I still love that movie. It's not great, but I still love it. Leviathan's my favorite of the three, if you want to know the truth. Peter Weller, Ernie Hudson, Hector Elizondo, Daniel Stern, Richard Crenna. Love that movie, man. And Ben says, hidden gems are always a treat. Queen says, I need a good list. It's all blood and gore now, not nearly as scary to me, just more gross. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, they do that a lot, but yeah, I mean, there's some good films out there. You can do whatever you want, but I'm saying in my mind, I can't just put a stamp on one decade and say that's where all the good horror films are, because it doesn't work that way. Even the further back I go, because for a long time I wasn't interested in horror. I'd say anything before 1970 I didn't really care about. And I started going back and watching some of those other older horror films and found some great gems in there. And you can never really just, I can't put a stamp on one decade and say that's it. That's where all the good horror films are. I will say this: if you're talking about like a massive majority, you're talking about the 80s, right? From the late 70s to the late 80s, there's a ton of great horror films, right? But I really truly believe, and I won't live to get to see it. And I mean, like 10 or 15 years from now, I'll be gone. But they'll be talking about some of these movies that we have now. They're going to be called cult classics and things like that. People are going to be running around going, have you seen The Witch? Man, did you see The Woman? Have you ever seen Lovely Molly, dude? That blew my mind. I think there are some movies like that it's going to happen for them. It may not be Midsummer, and it may not be Hereditary, and it may not be Get Out and films like that, because they're so, highly praised now. They maybe 10 or 15 years from now, people will be like, they're overrated. But I said, people are saying about them now. So anyway, our next one comes from Brian W. Smith, and he says elevated horror doesn't have to be boring, and that's true. It doesn't have to be boring. I know it. Like, you start talking about the slow burns. Well, how much is too much when it comes to slow burn, right? How much have you ever lit a one time when I was on vacation? I don't know if I should tell the story. One time when I had a friend named Monster. We used to work out together, and he went on this big 4th of July vacation and asked me if I want to go with him. And I went with him, and there was a big river party going on. I mean, there's hundreds of people there, and we went down the river, way down the river, and he said, hey, he wanted me to go down there. He's like, I got a quarter stick of dynamite. And he's like, we're going to set it off. 4th of July, right? So I'm drunk. He's drunk. We walk, about a half a mile down the riverbank, and put a cigarette, light a cigarette and put it on the fuse, and then walked off and like hid. And then it didn't go off, and I got scared. I was like, dude, what if somebody else walks down here and it goes off? Like, that's my luck. Somebody else will walk up next to it and it'll blow up and kill them or something, blow their hand off or something. So I started walking back towards it to see what happened. And like I get, a few steps from where I'm at, and all of a sudden I hear boom, right? And like car alarms are going off and everything else. People are running and screaming. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize a quarter stick of dynamite would do that. But yeah, sometimes the fuse, you wonder how long is too long for a fuse. And I say this year there was a good film to bring that up with. It's called Saint Maud. Now, it's one of those movies where for a long time you're like, why am I watching this? What's really going on here? Is it anything I haven't seen before? And then by the time that movie gets to the end, just like they really pushed it, man. Like the last 10 minutes of that movie are awesome. Everything up to that is just kind of like you have to watch it for the setup of what's going to happen in that last 10 minutes. So it's really, yeah, he says elevated, or I would say, pretentious horror films, art horror films. They don't have to be boring. That's true, Brian. I agree with you. They don't have to be. Sometimes they are, though, right? And Willis said, oh my God, Doghouse is amazing. David said, watch all the Tales from the Crypt. Awesome. Thanks for the upload. You guys are welcome. Hey, if they'll let me upload it, I'll upload it. And the way that works, guys, just so you know, I'm not a thief. Whenever I upload something, I don't get anything out of it. Whatever ad money is made on that goes straight to the copyright holder. Otherwise, if it didn't have that, I wouldn't even be able to upload it. So it has to be able to go straight to the copyright holder. So whoever was working on those, there's a dispute about it. Some of it with there were several different companies that worked on Tales from the Crypt. But somebody's getting paid off of those. So I'm glad you guys are watching them. A lot of them have 20, 30, 40,000 views. We put the stand up from Stephen King, the 94 version. One of the smartest things I've ever done in my life. Because the one thing I do get out of people watching all those things, we get subscribers here on the channel, and then they start watching the other stuff we do. But stand back in like September when I was, getting ready for the new version of the stand, I decided to try to see if I could put that up, and they let me. And I have probably the best copy on the internet anywhere. Even I've had people comment on that and said they went and bought it on Vudu, and they were pissed because the copy I had on YouTube was better. And that thing's been watched like over 300,000 times, I think, or something like close to 400,000 times. So yeah, that was one of the smartest things I ever did. That was a smart move on my part. I'm pretty proud of myself for that one. And Queen says, where's the best place to get a good list of films for new horror? I'll hook you up. I have several lists on here already. Like I did a top 10 for each year from 2001 until 2020, because that's 20 years. And if you want to go check out those videos, they're on here on this channel, and you can look through each one of those, and it'll tell you the top 10 films of each year, my top 10 films of each year. And I think, I'm kind of all over the place. I like everything. You guys can probably tell. I like, gore. I like slashers. I like haunted house movies, found footage, zombie movies. I don't care. I like it all. So I try real hard to be inclusive of everything. Derek Slayton says the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre is better than the original. It's beautifully shot. The kills are more graphic and brutal. It's incredibly intense. And R. Lee Emery is amazing in it. Not the first time I've heard this. Maybe you guys know Darcy and Joe Bob. I'm not saying we're friends or anything, but I've talked to Darcy a few times. Every now and then she'll talk to me on Twitter. And I think you guys know how she feels about this. She thinks that the remake is far superior to the original. I don't know if it's superior. I like both. I'll tell you this, back a long time ago, my nephew and my niece were watching the original version. It was on MTV. It was all edited and stuff. So I came over to the house and they were watching it, and I said, no, let me run back to my house. I'm going to get my copy of the 74 version. I didn't know you guys liked it. I'll go get my copy of the 74 version and bring it over here. You'll love it. Man, I put that in. They were asleep 15 minutes after that. So it's just a thing of like, yeah, the new one, the 2003 remake is way prettier than the 1974 film. I don't know if that makes it better. I don't know if the sexiness and all that stuff in it makes it better. I think Leatherface is pretty menacing in both films, and I think that original film, in 74, that scene where where the guy goes up on the porch and he kind of trips a little bit, and the door comes open and Leatherface hits him in the head with the hammer. That shocked me, man. And that's one of those scenes where the first time I was like 8 or 9, the first time I saw it too. So that's one of those films that, like, yeah, man, that moment where I was like, what the hell is that dude? You know what I mean? And yeah. Oh, Two Fallon says, what happened to the reboot of Tales from the Crypt? Yeah, they were going to do a reboot over at TNT, and what you call it? Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan was involved in that and was supposed to get off the ground, but they had a lot of problem with the rights, and I don't even know why they were promoting it, because they ended up just dumping the whole thing. And they were saying that this is okay, like right around when American Horror Story got really hot, and so they're trying to do a horror night at TNT. They were going to have a couple different shows they were going to bring back to put on that night and build a lineup. But do you like that vintage French filmmaker Jean Rollin? Yeah, I like. Okay, well, I'll be honest with you. The one that comes to mind is the Living Dead girl. I just talked about that the other day on here. One of these things I did. I think it was 5 free movies that I talked about that on one of our episodes of 5 free movies. Yeah, he's great. I mean, that movie alone is awesome. It's totally different from any other zombie film I've ever seen. She says, I think that is my new favorite. Okay. And we are moving on. James Byer says the original Halloween is the most overrated horror film ever. I don't know, man. Is it overrated? I don't know if it's overrated. I hear people say things about it I don't think are true. I hear people say, like, well, it's such a feminist movie. Jamie Lee fights so hard in that. And I have to agree with Emily on this one, where I think she fights a little bit, but ultimately the end of that movie is less feminist than Slumber Party Massacre, because what happens at the end of that movie? Dr. Loomis has to come and save her. He has to come upstairs and shoot Michael. And she just is like cowering in the corner at that point. And that's, maybe if you talk about the character later on, yeah, that's feminist. She's more feminist later on, but not in that movie. And yeah, I think there's, here's the thing. People who say, a lot of times people say, oh, it's the worst or it's the best. Usually both those ideas are wrong. It's usually somewhere in the middle of that. But you can't discount someone's personal opinion. But if you're saying it as it's a definitive thing, yeah, that's different. The original being the most overrated horror film ever? No, I don't think so. I don't even know if I know what the most overrated horror movie of all time is. I would really have to think about that one. So Robert Schaefer says, is the horror genre running out of creativity, or has everything been done before? Yeah, everything's been done before, but that happened about 15 minutes after we were humans, right? About 15 minutes after the first guy told the first story at the first campfire, everything became derivative from that, right? And so you can't help but be influenced by the people that you watched growing up. These directors today, they're no different than Carpenter and the guys that watched Hitchcock in his prime and grew up and tried to emulate some of that stuff. I think the people today, yeah, they need, there is you don't have to be totally original to be creative, right? You can take an idea that's been done before and have creativity with it by changing it. I don't like when they try to they'll say, well, this worked in one movie and this worked in one movie and this worked in one movie. So they'll take 3 themes and try to smash them together to make a movie. That's not creative. That's just, you trying to rearrange the pieces and hope we won't see the same puzzle, right? But I think there are creative filmmakers. I think Adam Wingard is a creative filmmaker. If you've never seen Pop Skull or You're Next, I think those movies are very creative. I mean, You're Next is exactly what I'm talking about. It's when you take a subgenre and you flip it on its head. Is it creative in the sense that's never been done before? Well, that subgenre has been done a lot, but what he did with it is what made it creative. And so I think there are guys out there that are doing that. And girls too, the Soska sisters, plenty of other female horror movie makers. I'm trying to think what I just watched. Yeah, the Etheria Film Festival. If you guys ever get a chance, check that out if you can find it. It used to be on Shudder. I'm not sure if it is anymore. Etheria Film Festival. It's all women in horror, like the entire thing, and all the directors are women, producers, all that stuff. It blew. I mean, it didn't surprise me because they were women. It just surprised me because I'd never heard of the Etheria Film Festival before, and when I watched it, I was like, damn, if they put all these shorts together, they would have one of the best anthologies of all time. And so I think there's still a lot of creativity out there. Uh, there's also a difference between being unoriginal and paying homage. Like I know a lot of people don't like the Green Inferno. I do because when I was a kid, I loved cannibal movies. Like I said, I love them all, and I always wanted to see one of those movies that wasn't shot like shit. You know what I mean? That didn't just look terrible the way it was shot. And I think that's why I love the Green Inferno because it's a polished version of a genre I like. And I think that's the same thing that Ari does with Midsummer too. So Brandy Johnson says, I would rather watch a zero budget straight to video horror movie than anything made by a big studio. It breaks my heart to see movies ripped apart by horror fans over things like bad acting and cheap special effects because I can only imagine what it took to get them made. Like that movie you're shitting all over was somebody's baby. Hmm. You can't find anything you liked about it. I can always find something I like about anything. That's been my evolution as a horror fan. Uh, at some point when I'm watching a movie, uh, if I'm like this isn't for me, at some point my brain shuts that part off and it says, okay, Jay, who is this movie for? Because every movie has an audience, and I don't care if it's the worst movie that you ever saw in your life. Somebody loves it. Somebody loves it. They got posters of it all over their house. They got bobbleheads of it. They love that shit, no matter how bad it is. And so I always try to find, instead of saying like, "Oh, this is a terrible," this is that. I always try to find an audience for a movie, especially with movies, especially if it's not a remake or something like that. I think there's an audience for every movie. And so, do I love them all? I don't love every single one, but I have to love them all as like in a sense of this is what I love, right? So yeah, and like I would say this, I'll be honest with you, Brandy. The bad acting gets to me sometimes, like in cheap movies. But I will say that you're right. I would rather watch a indie horror movie, than a big budget horror movie because usually the big budget horror movies let you down. It's the studio so money hungry that they cut corners and they want to be in charge of everything instead of letting the person who had the vision be in charge. And so 9 out of 10 times the indie movies are better, which is cool because only honestly, guys, like 10% of the horror movies that come out every year come out to theater. I mean, I'm serious. If you guys are only watching horror movies coming out of the theater, then you're missing all the good horror movies, right? Because they only like you get two or three good ones from the theater each year, and you get like 15 bad ones, right? Or mediocre or bad. But even though, like I said, even those movies have an audience, right? Like if you watch something like The Bye Bye Man or Wish Upon, and you think, God, what the fuck is wrong with horror today? At the same time, there's like some 15-year-old kid somewhere sitting in a basement going, huh, huh, huh. That's just the way it is, man. And Becky Blewett says, I don't like Sleepaway Camp at all. Well, I get that. Some people don't like anything at all, but Sleepaway Camp, I like it. It's not my favorite. For years, I was kind of like it's a B movie, but I think Sleepaway Camp does have some good moments in it, and it's like this is something that I've learned from my friend Emily, and I've learned along the way myself is that those movies have charm to them. Even those really bad slasher movies have charm to them, and I think Sleepaway Camp has more charm to it than some of the bigger slasher movies. And the whole thing with Angela and all that, and I love Felissa. She's she's an awesome person, right? So I never talk bad about Sleepaway Camp. I just can't do it, right? And I love anytime I see a child molester get boiled in a pot of hot water. That's a good movie. So here's some other ones here. Queen says even really bad horror films are pretty good. It's kind of like pizza. That's right. Queen, it's like Stephen Baldwin's line. Oh, what was it called? Threesome. A movie called Threesome. Stephen Baldwin had a line in there that said, "Sex is like pizza. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good." That goes for horror films too, right? And we are moving on here. And buddy Brian Carlson from Married to Cinema, he just had one little comment here. Brian has done hot takes with me before, and he's got some great hot takes. And okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. Brian is one of those guys. Like he comes off when you first meet him or whatever, we start talking to him. He comes off a little pretentious. You're like, oh, this guy's so full of shit. But the more he talks, and if you listen to him, he makes fucking sense. Like we had a whole thing about this movie called The Lodge that came out this year. I hated that movie. Brian loved it, and it became an enigma to me. Right? I watched that movie 6 times, guys, because he liked it, and I kept trying to to get, I was like, and then every time I would watch it, I would pick up on something. I'd be like, I understand why he likes that. He's right about that. He's one of those guys, right? That like he is right. You know what I mean? That if you might think he's a little pretentious at first, but he's not. He's just super fucking smart. And sometimes those people come off like that a little bit. But Brian is one of my favorite guys to talk to about horror films. He really knows his shit. And he says he just made one little comment here. He said, "I don't think anyone wants to hear what I think about Train to Busan," and that tells us plenty, right? And I said I do, but he never responded again. So yeah, I wanted to hear because Train to Busan is one of the most loved films of the last decade or something, right? Where everyone loves it. And yeah, Queen said, "Can you please give me the name of that all women's horror? It's called the Etheria Film Festival, and they also have a show now. They've turned that into a television show on Amazon Prime. If you get a chance, I think there's 2 seasons. It's just called Etheria, Ether. It's either IA or just A after that. I can't remember. But up next, guys, we have Wesley Jones. Guys, I gotta ask you for a favor here. I need a real favor from you guys here. Wesley Jones runs a podcast called Real Talk, right? And these guys are some of the best movie podcasters out there. And they don't just talk about horror, they talk about everything, man. They are the cinephile's best friend. They have had, I've been listening to them for 5 or 6 months now. And in my opinion, they've had some of the best episodes that I've listened to in the podcasting world. And Wesley Jones at Real Talk, they're trying, it's REEL. Get it? Real, it's a pun. Real Talk. They've been up for a year and they're trying to get their downloads to 10,000. They're right there. They want to hit 10,000 before they get to their 1 year mark in April. And so, guys, check out Real Talk, REEL Talk with Wesley Jones. Check it out. Wesley is a badass. Everybody on his team is a badass. You're going to love it. Give them a listen. Give them a download. Let's try to help get them to 10,000. That's how this thing works, guys. We help each other. We help each other. I help you. You help me. We all help each other. We try to have a loving, sharing community and keep all the negative, those people out, right? Which I've met some really freaking shitty podcasters, man. Just total narcissists and fucking just impossible. They'll steal ideas from you. They'll do anything just to get ahead because they think it matters if they get one more number than you that day. It's so crazy, right? I don't care. I just like to have fun with it, and I enjoy that we have a large group of people, but I'm not trying to outdo anyone else. If I was, I would be in a lot of trouble right now. But Wesley says, "I appreciate what Jordan Peele was trying to accomplish in his social commentary, but Get Out is just a solid thriller. It's not a masterpiece and absolutely nowhere near one of the best horror films of all time. I'm glad I saw it before the mainstream media went bananas over it. It's a turnoff when they do this, especially when the movie then can't possibly live up to its expectations." He also says, "The Witch is the best horror film since 2011's Kill List." Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, I like The Witch a lot. I also like 2011's Kill List. I don't know which one of those two I like better, but yeah, they're both really good. That would be one for your list there. Queen would be The Witch, also Kill List. If you've never seen Kill List from 2011, that's an excellent movie. 28 Days Later is the best zombie film of all times, says Wesley. Not Night or Dawn, though I love both of those films. I don't know, man. Zombie films, so many of them are so similar that it's hard for me to, we have the standard, which is Night of the Living Dead. Anything Romero touched early on, especially, that's the standard. And then, Danny Boyle, I think it's Danny Boyle, right? Who did 28 Days Later? Am I wrong on that? But anyway, yeah, because he also did Sunshine, right? Both had Cillian Murphy in it. And, yeah, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, and hopefully there'll be a 28 months later at some point. But that they kind of changed the game a little bit with the zombies being like, rage zombies and tearing people apart and stuff like that. And a lot of people, there's the old argument of those aren't zombies. Well, where do you think they got that idea from? You think they got that idea from somewhere else that they weren't intending those to be zombies? Okay. Yeah, I don't care. Zombies. I don't care. People say they're people into crazy zombies. I don't care. I don't care. Okay, they're mindless maniacs. That's good enough for me, right? So yeah, and I was going to mention like my favorite zombie film of the last. Look, everybody loves Train to Busan, and I think that's why Brian took a shot at it. I like that movie too, but The Battery, man, with Jeremy Gardner. That's the best. That's my favorite zombie movie of the last few years. I mean, that movie's because it's built on story. There's no big epic. Oh, we have to have a 45-minute version of the world ending before we can get to the zombies. Before we can get to this. Before in the Battery, it's just a simple story about two guys that are trapped in the zombie apocalypse, and the story is what really shines in that movie. Also, the acting. If you don't know Jeremy Gardner, Google that dude. He's been in a lot of good stuff, and he also directs movies, makes movies. So, American, he made The Battery. But anyway, American Werewolf in London is not the best werewolf movie, and is possibly all the way down at number 4. Wow, all the way down at number 4, behind Dog Soldiers, The Howling, and the original Wolfman. I can't agree with that at all. I don't think I like Dog Soldiers, but I don't think to me it's just like a really good episode of Tales from the Crypt. And I'm not going to say it's not a upper echelon werewolf movie because it is. But when we're talking about werewolf movies, we don't have enough to choose from, and that's the problem with werewolf movies. They don't give us enough, right? If the problem is when you're doing a werewolf movie, you have to have an actor who can show you that inner turmoil, and he has to be able to pull that off, right? And you also have to have a great transformation in the film. If you don't have a great transformation, nobody wants to see it. And so that's why a lot of people don't even attempt werewolf movies. They've done it, like Late Phases. That was a good recent werewolf movie. I like Wolf Cop. It's stupid, but I like it. For me, American Werewolf in London is probably my number 1. If I was going to go anything over that, it would be Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed. That's a great movie. And it also has a very good transformation and a great actor. And a very weird werewolf story. It's not anything compared to. I don't like The Howling. Personally, I never liked The Howling. I never made a connection to that movie whatsoever. I kind of like some of the sequels a little bit better, to be honest with you. I'm not going to say I hate it because, like I said, there's always an audience out there for everything, and a lot of people like The Howling. There was 3 werewolf movies that came out that year: Wolfen, The Howling, and American Werewolf in London. And of the 3, Wolfen is the one that never gets mentioned, and the battle is always between London and Howling. And I got to say, even though I hate John Landis, he's such a prick, right? And his son is even worse. Max Landis, he's a fucking prick. I would never want to be in the same room with those guys. But at the same time, I do love that movie, American Werewolf in London. Moving on, Wesley's got a lot here he's trying to get off his chest. He says The Ring, The Fly, The Hills Have Eyes, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and The Thing are all better remakes than the original movie. Yeah, I'll give you that. I agree with that. I don't know about The Ring. Ringu, The Ring is pretty much, I'm not going to say it's shot for shot, but it's not a whole lot different, right? Even the atmosphere, because they set it in the Pacific Northwest and where it rains all the time. And that's kind of what the weather is like in Japan, right? It's very green and it rains all the time and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I can't really say that one, but The Fly, yes, definitely a better movie. The Hills Have Eyes. I don't know if it's a better movie. I'm not a huge Aja fan, but it's a damn good movie. I like it a lot. It definitely makes you want to turn away at points. And of course, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I'm assuming you're talking about the '78 Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Sutherland and Goldblum. Hell yeah! And of course, The Thing is a better movie than that schlocky The Thing from Outer Space movie or whatever. It came from outer space, whatever it was called. And he says Black Christmas '74 is the 3rd best slasher film of all time, behind Halloween and Psycho. There is a wide gap between these films and the rest of the slasher genre. Yeah, I mean, is Psycho a slasher though? I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a contributor to the genre, the subgenre. I think you look at. When you look at this, people have this big thing about what is a slasher, what's not a slasher. Well, you have the giallo films from Italy, and then you have Psycho, and then you have all these great books written by people like Agatha Christie. And I think all 3 of those things is kind of what combined to become the slasher genre. And as far as Black Christmas being the 3rd, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. Behind Halloween and Psycho, yeah, I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't know. I'm not going to argue with people about genres because genres don't matter to me. You don't. That's just a label that somebody puts on something. And that's for when they put it on their shelf so they know where they want to put it in their mind. Oh, it's a slasher. It's a home invasion. That's they are what they are. But I don't argue with people about genre because I feel like whatever you got out of it, that's what it is, right? So there you go. And there is a wide gap between these films and the rest. Okay, he said he loves the genre, the slasher genre. I had somebody a while back tell me that something, I don't remember what movie it was. That's not a horror film. He went off on somebody else. That's not a horror film. So I had to step in, put my 2 cents in, and I was like, look, it very much feels like a horror film. And if that's the emotion that it evoked from them was terror or horror or whatever, then that's what it was to them. What doesn't matter to you what it is to them? And he's like, well, if that's the freaking case, then Beauty and the Beast is a horror movie. And I said, well, let me tell you something, buddy. If I'm laying on my couch someday and a fucking candlestick starts talking to me, I'm going to be scared as hell. So, like, if you drop some acid and, like a candlestick starts singing, be our guest, yeah, that's going to be terrifying. That'd probably be more terrifying to me than Freddy Krueger, to be honest with you. So, yeah, a lot of things are subjective, and people shouldn't be assholes towards other people for not thinking the same way they do. We're moving on, and Wesley says, final. A commentary on us as movie watchers. We're too easily excitable and too easily impressed with today's films because we're being conditioned to this mediocrity. Today's filmmakers struggle with pace, story, and feel like everything has to be some type of statement or commentary rather than just worry about making an entertaining film with a great story. Majority of these year's best films will long be forgotten, and I even start to forget them after 6 months of seeing them. I'm not saying they aren't good. I'm just saying they aren't greats and classics that will stand the test of time. That's true, but that's true in every era, right? I mean, I can't say that, man. I can't just say that with like I said, it's not something I can just stamp it and say that's a fact because I see a lot of great filmmakers out there. I see a lot of great young filmmakers out there, female. There's a lot of people who have never got to give their voice to this genre before. There's a lot of African American filmmakers and foreign filmmakers, and like I said, female filmmakers and transgender filmmakers and things like that they never had a voice before. So you can't tell me that they don't have any creativity inside of them when they've never been allowed to, give it to us. So I can't just say that, man. I understand what you're saying, and yeah, you're right. I think a lot of people are too easily impressed and excited by some films. A lot of films that come out, I'll watch it. I'm like, God, I don't understand what people, you know what I mean, in my mind. But at the same time, I realize that, like I said, there's an audience for every movie. And Jace Whitman says, but guys, before I move on here, check out Real Talk with Wesley Jones. We want to get them guys up to 10,000 downloads before their 1 year anniversary. And I'm super excited to be, to help to try to promote that. Let's get it done. Let's get them 10,000 downloads. Don't make me have to go in there and download 900 times, guys. I really need your help on that. All right. So, and me and Wesley are going to do a show together sometime. We've got it set up. My problem is I have too much stuff set up, and I have, like about 6 people or 7 people that we were talking. And at one point I said, hey, let's do this. And then I didn't set it up right, or I didn't schedule anything. I need a secretary is what I need, because I have like 100 projects going and none of them are getting done. So let's go back up here. And yeah, Scott says Psycho 2 is more of a slasher film than Psycho. I would agree with that. And Aaron says the Sleepaway Camp films, The Burning. I guess he's talking about slashers. Yeah. Willis says the sequel that broke my heart the most was Alien 3. I kind of like Alien 3, man. I don't hate it. I mean, it's a weird movie because it's like the original Alien is on a small scale. It's a an isolation thing. You have a small group of people. They don't have all these super crazy weapons and all that stuff. They're just trying to fight off this alien, and one by one they go pretty quick. Actually, after the alien gets on the ship, they go pretty quick. And so then Aliens, James Cameron comes in for Aliens, and he makes it this big, like, action, sci-fi, epic adventure movie, and it changes the whole flavor of the thing, right? And then by the time Alien 3 comes around, I feel like they try to scale it back a little bit. I think David Fincher did Alien 3. And they try to scale it back a little bit and give us that other approach from the first one. I liked it. I liked the concept. I liked that Sigourney was still a badass. The one thing I don't like about it, and I think this will probably be the thing that a lot of people don't like about it, is that the way it starts off. It's very melancholy the way it starts off. It's just kind of a big letdown the way it starts off with, oh well, Michael Biehn's character is dead and Newt is dead, and uh, it's just like why did they go through all that if they're going to kill those characters off? And uh, I don't know. Also, like the whole thing with I mean, I don't know. I like Alien 3. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't hate it. I think it hurt people with that opening scene. It hurt people so bad that a lot of people to this day don't like the movie because of it. I'm not saying that's your prerogative there, Willis, but I'm just saying a lot of people that I've talked to are like that. And George Ryder says Ron Perlman played Beast in that 80s Beauty and the Beast TV show. Tell me that doesn't cause nightmares. Hell yeah, man. Ron Perlman. Yeah. And Aaron says, I like Tales from the Dark Side TV series and Twilight Zone TV series. Yeah, those are great, man. And Queen says, I just found out about Night Gallery, the series. I never knew it existed. It's pretty good so far. Fuck yeah, man. Night Gallery, 3 seasons of Night Gallery. It's the series that comes after the Twilight Zone. And where the Twilight Zone is geared more towards sci-fi, Night Gallery is geared more towards horror. The only thing I'll say about Night Gallery is they did Rod a little dirty on Night Gallery, because with Twilight Zone, he wrote about, I want to say like 60 or 70% of those scripts, right? And with the Night Gallery, they took a lot of the control away from him. They just wanted him to be a guy that stood there. They wanted the like the character of Rod Serling instead of actually wanting Rod Serling. They wanted him to stand there. But I love it. I still love it. And if you can find it, don't watch it on NBC.com, because you can watch it on NBC.com for free, but they've cut it all up. The original, they would have like an hour-long show, and there would be like a major story that lasted like 30 minutes, a minor story that lasted like 20, and then there would be like a little funny segment with like Cesar Romero playing a vampire at a blood bank or something. And they cut all that out, and they cut the stories up, and they've totally ruined it at NBC.com. So if you get a chance, get the DVDs, or find a place where you can watch the original episodes, because there's so much in those that they took out. And one thing I really do love about it is Rod. Him introducing the painting before each. Tonight we have, what I mean, and he would show you the painting, and the painting. Those paintings are all done, by the way, by one guy. I think there was one other guy who did a couple for the pilot, but it's amazing that one guy did all this, because they're crazy good, man. I mean, really, like, they are works of art. I mean, that's why they're in the Night Gallery, right? But anyway, yeah. So Jace Whitman disagreed with everybody and said that Dawn of the Dead is the best zombie movie of all time. I can't go there either, man. I can't call it the worst, but I can't call it the best. Jacob Crago says, they say it's cliche to trip and fall when chasing a horror movie. I say that would be just my luck. I agree with you, Jacob. Look, I had a buddy with me one time when I was a kid. I had a buddy spend the night. I had bunk beds, big wooden bunk beds. My dad made them. And my buddy was sleeping on the bottom. I'm sleeping on the top. And we're watching, I can't remember which one. Friday the 13th, I want to say 4, something like that on the TV. And this dude was so funny, man. He was like one of those stoner guys that just talks like that. And he was hilarious. Steve Martin was his name. Not that Steve Martin, but his name was Steve Martin. And yeah, I remember him. He kind of like looked up. And he goes, "Hey, Jay." I'm like, "What, man?" He goes, "What would you do, man, if like Jason just like kicked in your bedroom door and came in here, man?" I'm like, "Me?" I'm like, "I'm fighting that motherfucker." I'm like, "I'm jumping up out of this bed and swinging on that bitch, and we're going at it." You know what I mean? He goes, "Not me, man." And he was kind of depressed. I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Man, if Jason comes to that door, I'm jumping through the damn window and running through that field." And I was like, "Yeah," I was like, I understand that. I was like, "But what happens when you fall down?" He's like, "Well, just bend over and kiss your ass goodbye, dude." I'm like, "Come on, man. You got no fight in you at all." Like, no, it was just funny to me. And so I always felt like that too. Yeah, ever since that day when I had that conversation with Steve Martin, where he was like, "Yeah, just bend over and kiss your ass goodbye if Jason gets out. You can try to run, but if it doesn't work, bend over and kiss your ass goodbye." So, where we at here? Aaron also mentioned the Monsters TV series. I remember the Monsters TV series. I tried to find that to see if I could upload it here, and I couldn't find any good copies of it. One of these days, I will buy it. The entire. I think there's 3 seasons of Monsters. I'm not sure. There may be more, but yeah, I remember it. Oh, it's coming on. I always love the opening, man, with the how they flipped it. You know, the monsters are watching the show instead of the people. So, and Aaron also said Aliens versus Predator. Um, I don't know what we're. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I don't love it. I don't love either one of them. Aliens versus Predator One or Requiem. I don't really love either one of them, but they're okay. And Queen says, I wonder who owns all those night gallery paintings. What a fortune, man! I wish I did. I would. Oh, I wish I did. I wish I did. I love them so much. Like I go. There's a night gallery website where you can go through and look at each one of the paintings, and it gives you a little stick that Rod said for it. And man, they're just all amazing. And it's even better to look at them online because they don't like cut away from it like they do on the show. You just look at it. Uh, Stephen Pazienza says, "I'm sorry I'm late. No problem, bro." And DJ says, "I'm late too, Stephen. No problem. No problem, guys. Because the thing is live, but you can go back and watch it from the beginning if you want to. It'll be uploaded later. You can watch the whole thing if you want to. If you don't want to, I understand. I understand. So Adam Jackson says the Harry Potter series had some of the best horror aesthetic I have seen. I'm not going to comment on that very much, just to say that I was not a Harry Potter fan. I never really got into. I'm not a fantasy person. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings person. I guess for fantasy, I like Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars guy. I also like Star Trek. I guess that's where my nerddom goes when it comes to that kind of stuff. But Aaliyah McLaughlin, one of our badass moderators at J versus Horror on Facebook. If you guys haven't been to J versus Horror on Facebook, check it out. 26,000 members. We don't take any bullshit. There's no selfies. There's no all that stuff. It's just pure horror. And there's no, we don't allow negative comments. We don't allow people to get on each other. We don't allow anything that's negative. We're a fan appreciation group, a horror fan appreciation group. So check it out. Leah says slasher movies are about punishing people for drinking, doing drugs, and having premarital sex. And that's correct, Leah, of course. But doesn't it make you wonder, like, why did Christian conservatives try to ban all these movies in the 80s? Because they were very clearly morality tales, right? Where they were like, if you do this, you're gonna something bad's gonna happen. But the Christians were like, I hate these movies. Like, no, man, these are the same things. These are the same as the fairy tales you tell kids. You just don't want them to see it. Whatever. Anyway, like that's why I always loved the Elm Street kids too, because the Elm Street kids didn't do anything wrong, and you always got more backstory with the Elm Street kids, right? Because whatever their backstory was, whatever it is they were into, whatever their personality was like, that's how Freddy was going to kill them later on. So they had to give you that, and because of that, there are a ton of different types of Elm Street kids, and it's cool because there's like a relatable character for everyone. Everyone, the gamers, everybody had an Elm Street kid they could relate to. And Marty Fleming, hey, what's up, man? He says, I thought Alien 3 was a great end to Ripley's story. Hicks and Newt getting the unceremonious demise really added to the impact of the film. She's always alone. It's just her and the creature. That's a good one, man. Yeah, I get that. That's a good point there, too, man. Really good point. Yeah, that it always has to come down to her and the creature. Bringing them back probably would have. I mean, you couldn't have them in that story. It would have made sense, right? And Steven says, I'm going to watch In the Mouth of Madness tonight. Awesome, dude. I just watched that New Year's last year. Regina had never seen it. We put it on. I drank a bottle of rum and we watched it together. And she loved it. So, yeah, I love that movie too. So creepy, right? It's such a creepy mindfuck movie. And DJ says, oh, my God, TV issues in my theater room. Finally got the speakers working. Hooray. Great, man. George says, J versus Horror Group on Facebook is one of the few reasons I still keep a Facebook account. Me too, brother. And Martin says, she sacrifices herself to basically wipe out the species. Very downbeat, but Fincher made a great movie. I agree, man. And David Fincher's a great director, dude. And like, this is one of his first big projects, Alien 3. I love it. And Willis says, my favorite horror show, as cheesy as it was Freddy's Nightmares. Some of those aren't bad. They really aren't. You have to go through them. But when they got away from, there was in the first couple of episodes of that, they're still carrying on the Freddy stuff. And they're talking about the Springwood slasher and all that. When they get away from that a little bit and it becomes more of an anthology, the show really takes off. DJ says, oh, he's on Facebook. Steven says, definitely join the Facebook group. Yeah, guys, check it out. Yeah, I think you'll like it. Um, DJ says, do you guys have PayPal? Want to keep you on? Yeah, well, we have Patreon is what we have. You can check out some of our videos. We have the link to our Patreon page in there, and like I hate pitching this stuff, but I kind of have to do it, because it's more than me that's involved in it at this point. The Patreon page. You go to the Patreon page for $2 a month, anywhere from 2 to 5. I don't want anyone donating more than $5 a month. I don't want that. I don't want that. I feel like we're in a period of economic hardship for most people, and I would hate to. I don't want anybody giving me more than $5 a month to run this show, because all we do with the money is we pay for some of our programs, and we bought this new computer to do some better lives and stuff like that. So that's what we do with the money. And you can donate as little as $2 a month. You can donate as much as $5 a month. A lot of our videos have the link in it. If you don't see it and you want to donate, let me know and I'll hook you up with the link. But there's no pressure. I'm not asking anyone or saying you got to donate or you can't be part of what we do or have any fun with us. I'm not going to do that. Patreon is just a way that helps us kind of offset paying the bills, because I mean, I'm not rich. I'm comfortable, but I'm not rich. And like, it helps a little bit. I get, 20, 30, $40 a month to help out with paying the subscription fees for some of the programs. And also, like I said, we're paying on this new computer we just bought. Steven says his favorite show ever is Tales from the Crypt. Well, you'll love this channel because we have all 93 episodes uploaded, and a couple of them more than once because I didn't like the copy that I uploaded the first time. DJ says, don't be shy. I'm on the P. Hooray. Looking now. Yeah, we got to. I don't remember. Like, I don't always remember to do it. Like, Regina has to remind me, hey, you got to start talking about the Patreon page. We have, right now, I think we have 5 patrons. And if you are one of our patrons, we do a show once a month called Patron Picks, where we talk about whatever you want us to talk about. If you want us to review a movie, if you want us to talk about a horror topic, we dedicate that whole part of that episode to you for helping us out. So, yeah, that's what we do. And moving on. Whew. George says, I love hot takes. I know you do. I know you do. And Amanda Hernandez says, I think the Evil Dead remake is way better than the original. That's another one of those like Dawn of the Dead where I'm on the fence about whether it's way better. I like it a lot, but I don't know if I can say it's way better. So Alex Pearson, our buddy from Gag Me With a Knife, guys, check that out. There's another podcast that I want to give a shout out to, Gag Me With a Knife. They just got started about a month ago. They talk about a new slasher every week on Wednesday, and they have some fun. They are some great fun, man. I like to think, I always say this, I think of myself as like Dr. Sam Beckett. If it happened in my lifetime, I know about it. The further you go back from that, the less and less I know. But these occasionally, man, Alex and Emily have checked me a little bit with some of the slashers they've come up with, and I've had to go watch them. And I'll be like, they were right. Or, so yeah, check out Gag Me With a Knife. It's the Gag Me With a Spoon, Gag Me With a Knife. So another one here. Oh, this is from my buddy Russell De Silva. Russ is a big movie critic, man. Like over in India, he is the shit. If you go on his channel, you'll see he talks to like the biggest stars in the world, man. This dude has interviewed Christian Bale. He's interviewed tons of people, and he did a show with me. I'm very thankful to him for that. He's a great dude. Russell De Silva, he says, Jay, I feel like Rosemary's Baby is the singular most overrated, downright soporific. Oh, you got me there, man. What's that? Soporific, dreadfully drab, and awfully directionless piece of horror hokum I've seen in my life. That was a great sentence, dude. And that was one sentence. And I also feel deep down that more than a few are unwilling to call it out because of its so-called classic status. I agree with that. And trepidation of looking bad among fellow horror movie buffs. And I say this all after liking Roman Polanski as a director, his personal life notwithstanding, of course. Honestly, Rosemary's Baby is suited for a 15 to 20-minute short film at best. It's stretched to over 2 hours of boredom, at least going by the script of the 68 movie. Hope this classifies as a hot take, buddy. Yeah, that classifies as a hot take. There's a lot of people that freaking love Rosemary's Baby. and for me, it's just another horror movie that they say is a classic. I've seen it a couple times, maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't get anything like crazy out of it. But I'll tell you this: in 2016, I want to say, I was at Fright Fest. I got to talk to Tony Todd, and then I asked Tony what his favorite movie was. What his favorite movie was, and he said that his favorite movie was Rosemary's Baby. He said he saw it when he was younger, and it blew his mind, and it always stuck with him. And then when he got a chance to work in horror, uh, it was one of the reasons why he wanted to do that, because he loved that movie so much. So yeah, um, some people, it's a matter of taste, right? Some of us don't have any. I might be one of those people. And Kevin Pishkin. I'm going to get back over here to the side, guys, in a minute. But right now, Kevin Pishkin, I hope I'm not too late. My honest take is that, with the exception of Clown, Eli Roth is simply not a good horror movie producer. In fact, Green Inferno is the single most overrated film. That line's been used a lot. Single most overrated film. In fact, Green Inferno is the single most overrated film ever handed to the horror legions. Not scary, not anything, just awful. I like Green Inferno. I also like Clown, though. And look, I don't think Eli's terrible as a producer. When Eli went through his South American phase, he goes to South America, meets Lorenza, gets married, all that stuff, and he does Green Inferno. It takes like 3 years to get Green Inferno done, and all that time he's producing other films. Let me tell you a couple films I like from that era. Besides these, I'm not a big fan of Knock Knock. It's okay, but if you ever get a chance, watch the film The Stranger. It's an interesting vampire film from Chile that Eli helped get made, and it's a really fun new take on the vampire genre. And also another film that he was in while he was in South America is called Aftershock, and it's kind of like Final Destination in a sense, because what happens is there's a huge earthquake, and this sets up the way that everyone dies in the movie, because people get pinned against stuff, people get crushed. There's a big panic after the earthquake, and people are running over each other. And there's some great gore scenes in that movie, and it even becomes crazier than that, because after the earthquake, there's like street gangs roaming around, burning people to death and stuff. Aftershock is a good horror film. One of the few like where it's a natural disaster and at the same time it's a horror film. It's not just a thriller. It's not like the Poseidon Adventure, where it's a thriller but not really a horror movie. This is both, very much so. And so let's get back over here to this side. And Steve says, "Thank you for all the great videos you've uploaded. It's greatly appreciated." Man, I love it when people say that. That's all I'm asking for from anybody. Really, is just I love it when people, because you would be amazed at the comments that we get that just tell us how terrible and awful we are. So it's good to get a little. I'm not somebody who needs a pat on the back, but every now and then it's good to not get kicked, right? And he also said my favorite international horror film is Basket. I like that movie too a lot. I just had a conversation about that with somebody the other day. Great film, very very Hellraiser-y film. Hellraiser-y. I don't know if that's a word. DJ says Ash Wolf, but Exorcist is always my favorite. Steven says Exorcist is the greatest horror film ever. I like it a lot. It's number 3 on my list. DJ says yes, Steve, and Queen says he is insane saying Rosemary's Baby is overrated. That is ridiculous. One of the best of all time. See, it's subjective, guys. Like I don't think it's bad, but it doesn't. When I watch it, I'm not like, oh God, this is. So for me, it's I'm not going to say take it or leave it, because everything in the past has to be there for everything to work the way it does to get to where we are now. So yeah, and DJ says I love the cinematography of Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, Alfred's great. Martin says, things in your lifetime. I was born pretty much exactly 10 years after the moon landing. That's scarier than any horror film. I'm old as fuck. That's funny, man. DJ says, oh, Al Pacino is the devil. That was intense. Yeah. And Martin says, Baskin is amazing. Yeah, it's a great film, man. When people say, oh, there's no creativity in horror anymore. Well, that's what I was talking about. You have to listen to everyone's voice before you can say there's no creativity. And it's really hard to listen to everyone's voice when there's like 400 horror movies coming out every year. So where are we at here? Leah says lots of so-called non-horror movies and TV shows are really more horror than some horror movies. Terminator, Game of Thrones, Justice League, Gods and Monsters, and WandaVision come to mind. Yeah, I agree with that. I see stuff all the time where I'm like, this is not horror, but man, I wish I could tweak it just a little bit, because I could totally turn this into a horror film. And that started for me a long time ago with movies like Treasure of the Sierra Madre with Humphrey Bogart, like that movie, you could just tweak that movie just a little bit and make it into a horror movie, right? Because they all turn on each other, and that's the great part of that movie for me. But yeah, I agree with her. There are horror elements in movies and things. A lot of people consider Terminator to be a horror movie. Uh, I don't know how I feel about that. A lot of people think Terminator. I've heard people call Terminator a slasher. I get that, but I get a little bit more with Predator. For me, Predator is a slasher. They just take away the woods, they make it a jungle, and instead of blonde girls with big boobs running around, we have a bunch of muscled up good guys, or Arnold's buddies or whatever. And in that sense, it's funny to me because like Arnold's one of my favorite final girls because of that. and Derek Slayton said the evening news is he commented on her post about things that aren't horror that are more horror than some horror movies. If that's not confusing enough. And Leah said Blair Witch is brilliant. That's a comment from her, and she says, "Come at me." I'm not gonna come at. I love Blair Witch, man. I get why people don't get it, but at the same time, if you're telling me, if you watch the Blair Witch Project and you're telling me that if that was happening to you, that it wouldn't terrify you, you're a liar. If you were in the woods, you were lost, you don't have any food, you don't have any cigarettes, you're used to smoking a pack a day, you don't have any whatever it is you need, and somebody is fucking with you actively, and you're seeing terrifying things, and your friend goes missing, yeah, you're gonna be terrified. And I don't care who you are. I mean, I consider myself to be a tough guy. I was a cop for 12 years. I played football. I won a state weightlifting championship in Missouri. And I mean, that doesn't make you a tough guy, but I'm just saying, like, for me, I'm telling you right now, if that was happening to me, I would be shitting myself. And I've been in the woods. Like I was a country boy, man. I've spent weeks in the woods on ROTC camping trips and stuff like that, man. And I'm telling you, if that shit was happening to you, you'd be scared. And if you tell me that you wouldn't, then you're just kind of lying about it. Because I don't care how tough you are. If something was fucking with you that hard and you're that lost, you're isolated, you got nothing, yeah, it's gonna get to you. And I think they've tried to repeat that several times with other movies, but it doesn't really work as well as it did with Blair Witch Project because a lot of reasons. Eduardo Sanchez made that movie, I think, and part of the reason that it worked so well was they didn't tell the actors everything they were going to do to them. They didn't tell them all the plot points of what was happening, and they worked them into this frenzy, and then got great performances from them. So yeah, Albie Rhodes says watching the first Paranormal Activity is one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had from watching a movie. That's funny. I didn't care for the first one that much, but part two was okay. And it actually had something like I never get scared, man. Like you wouldn't believe some of the crazy shit I've seen in my life. I really don't get scared. I always have this thing in my mind that like shuts off and says, "Okay, well you got to deal with this right now. You can be scared later." And that's what I do. I'll get up and deal with the situation, and then later on I'll think about it and be like, "Ooh, that was fucked up," because that's just like the way they train you as a cop, and that's the way you should be. You don't all these assholes you see out here making all these stupid decisions and stuff. They're just idiots that have tunnel vision, and this is all they can see from one moment to the next. They can't put their fear aside so they can see this much of it, right? So, but I digress because what I was talking about was I was in my house. It was like an old farmhouse, and pretty nice house though. And I'm watching Paranormal Activity 2 when it came out on the big screen there in the house in the living room. And that house was so creepy, man. It was like one of those freaky houses where you just felt something every time you were in there. And that night, I saw something that looked like a woman in the hallway down from where my living room was. And it looked like she walked across from one bedroom to the other bedroom. And there was nobody there but me. So it freaked me out. And then the movie kind of started to freak me out a little bit too because of that. I mean, I don't get scared and I don't believe in any of that or whatever, but it didn't help. I'll say that. My favorite Paranormal Activity is part 3. I think that's the best one. It's made by the guys who did Catfish on MTV, and they also did the movie Catfish, and they really know what they're doing. I love the tricks and stuff they used in Paranormal Activity 3. Queen says, I love Blair Witch 2. She means as well, TOO. And George Rogers says, I was 14 when Blair Witch came out, and I grew up in the sticks. That movie kept me out of the woods for a while. Yeah, it I took my girlfriend to see that when it came out. I think I was 19, and I had her worked up, man, because she didn't get on the internet like I did. The internet wasn't such a big deal back then like it is now. And I told her, I was like, this is real. This is a movie. They found this footage of these kids, and I knew it wasn't real. I'd been reading everything about it on the internet, but I love the movie. I found it like it could be terrifying, and it totally devastated her, man. And I had to, as soon as we got out in the parking lot, I had to tell her, I was like, that's not real. It wasn't real. I'm sorry, because she was like shaking, scared, right? And that's what a lot of people who see it today don't understand. The big marketing campaign behind Blair Witch was fucking amazing, man. And they really pulled it off with a lot of people as a prank almost, but yeah, it worked. Steven says Brad Dorfus, Gemini Kill in Exorcist 3 is his favorite horror movie performance. Yep, that's a great one. All right. Whew, we've been on here for a while, guys. I'm trying to get through this without, I don't want to not mention anybody's comments because everybody was so kind to come out and leave comments. Let's see where we at now. George, we're back to George Rogers says Halloween 3 is better than every Halloween installment that followed. I don't know, George. I don't know. Look, the Halloween 3 is like my movie when I talk about. A lot of people say it's the best. A lot of people say it's the worst. For me, neither one of those things are true. It's kind of in the middle, and like I don't hate it. I think it's a good movie for that era. I'm gonna say something that's very cliche here is that I think it should have just been called Season of the Witch, because maybe been in the Halloween universe or something. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but I don't care that it doesn't have Michael Myers in it. I think it's a decent story, especially if you look at that era of horror movies. You look around, it's original. It's not like everything that everybody else was doing. But yeah, I don't think it's the greatest movie ever either. But I got to say something. I have a favorite. I like 4, but I'm a huge fan of 6. And I know that's a terrible movie. I know it's cut all to hell and torn up. And I had Daniel Franz, the guy that wrote the movie, on the show here, or back on a different show before we started all this. And he was talking about how, it was cut. That guy's crazy. That guy's crazy. I mean, he not for Halloween, but that conversation went in a whole different direction after that, because we started talking about some of the other movies he's made. One of them was, The Haunting in Amityville, the Amityville Murders. And, like we talked about how the families kind of didn't like the movie. And then we talked about The Haunting of Sharon Tate, and the dude lost it. He starts going off in that episode about how much he hates Sharon Tate's sister, all the terrible things she said about him, and she tried to set him up and leak some of his. It went on, and it was to the point where I was like, I had to say something or cut this or edit it. I think what we did was we just edited as much out of it as we could, because I wasn't going to sit there and let this guy curse the sister of a murder victim on the show I was doing. I think Brian Carlson was with me on that one. Brian might have been the one that set him off, I think, too. Martin said, I understand your cop training. I'm a first aider, and I had a few serious accidents to deal with. Also present at the Glasgow Airport terrorist attack. Wow, I had to run past a man on fire. That's crazy, dude. Awesome. That's awesome that you're a paramedic, a first aider. Yeah, well, here I don't know, in the United States, we call it first responder. I had to take that class when I was a cop, and I am no doctor. I can tell you that, man. I hated that class. And you had to take it. It was a 40-hour class. You had to get certified as a first responder, or you couldn't be a cop. And I just remember they had a room where, like, you didn't know what was going on in there, and you had to walk in and deal with the situation after all this training and stuff. And when I walked in there, the woman was having a baby, and she was like, not really having a baby, but she's acting it out. She's like, I'm having a baby. It's coming. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. I just tried to do the best I could, right? And so DJ says, think we just scared the neighbors. I found your episodes of Kolchak so amazing. We streamed the originals and the remakes. Cool. Steve Morgan says, I love H6. Yeah, I love Halloween 6. I can't help it, man. I know it's bad, but I like it. Paul Rudd's in it. I like Paul Rudd in that, man. I like it because he's crazy enough to fight Michael. And in one version of the movie, in one cut of it, he actually he busts Michael's head open, like with the white meat showing, right? And yeah. And Queen says, you are right for defending Sharon Tate's sister. Good for you. Yeah, man, that guy, Daniel Franz. I'm not going to say anything bad about him because he's a great writer. He did Haunting in Connecticut and Halloween 6. which is why I wanted to talk to him. I didn't care about the movies he made now because they're terrible now. But he's also got. I had one planned, I think, called something about Nicole Brown Simpson, and I was like, oh, come on, man, you can't. It's really sleazy. It's sleazy horror movie making. It's exploitative, is what it is. And he also says, oh wait, here we go. George says Halloween 4 and 6 are watchable, but 5 is just awful in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with 5. They they were just trying to continue. Well, what happened was, let's be honest, 3 came out, and so that kind of killed things for a while. And after that, so then there's this crazy like explosion of Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street, right? And they're doing a sequel every year. Every year they're cashing a check for 17, 20, $25 million, right? And so Mustafa Akkad and the guys behind Halloween, not John Carpenter, uh, are like, how the like we started this? Halloween started this. How are they making all this money? So they were like, we got to get back in this. And Halloween 4 was their attempt at that, and they did. They did a great job with Halloween 4, but 5 was all fucked up, right? It's like weird. It's just weird. I'm sure that somebody out there loves it. The mask is weird in Halloween 5. Uh, some of that little plot stuff at the beginning, where it's like the beginning of, or it's like the part in Frankenstein where he lives with the people that don't know he's there, and kills them, or accidentally kills one of them or something like that. But yeah, it's crazy. Uh, DJ says I'm a trained. Uh, I'm a the trainer first aider. Oh, okay, I get it. High angle rescues and AED with emergency first aid. That's awesome, man. And George, your comment got help for review, dude. What happened? Your comment got help for review there, bud. It said that odd ass clown music that played when bumbling cops showed up on screen was the worst decision. Yes, yeah, because what was the deal with those cops, man? Those were like the Keystone cops ever, right? And I didn't understand the whole setup there with her anyway. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It's not just me, obviously, because we have other people that feel that way too. And we're moving on. Wow, we still got some to go here. Trent Owen says 13 Ghost Remake is only remembered as being good out of nostalgia. It was badly written, enacted, and executed, and the only thing it has going for it is the ghost makeup. I don't know, man. Like, I understand what you're saying there. Yeah, it is a little cheesy. And my problems with 13 Ghosts are different than that. Look, have you ever seen the original 13 Ghosts? That's terrible, okay? Because that was one of those William Castle like prop things where you had to wear the ghosto vision glasses to see the ghost in the movie. That movie's not great either. Like, the story's just not great. And of course, they weren't trying to be great with those movies. They were all like a gag. There had to be some kind of a, something. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember, but they always had a gimmick. That's what I'm trying to think. Yeah, they always had a gimmick. The Tingler, all that stuff, like to shock people in their seats, and that's what 13 Ghosts was. Ghosto vision glasses. I like what they did with that in the remake. How they took the Ghosto vision idea and put it into the movie, and the people could only see the ghost with the glasses, right? And some of the ghosts in that movie, the design for some of the ghosts in that movie are awesome. But yeah, for me, that movie's a little too cinnamon toast crunch in some places. Like, it's just too sweet, right? I would have loved a much darker ending for 13 Ghosts than the way it turned out. But it is a good movie. I didn't hate it, and I would say for me it's a remake that's better than the original, even though that's probably blasphemy for some people. Andrew Widensall, and man, if you guys don't know Andrew, go check him out on his page on Facebook. This kid is talented. I mean, he does a lot of fun stuff, just makes crazy videos all the time. And he's a big horror fan. And he agreed that he thought that the 2003 remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre is better than the original. Marsha Palushak says Hellraiser should have stopped at 3. I'll give it 4. Well, let's go to 4. I mean, we got to have all of them because we don't want to get rid of anything, right? And we don't want to. I don't want to burn anything, guys. I mean, everything that's happened for a reason, and we're at where we're at now because of it. So, yeah, I mean, I understand what she's saying. I like Bloodline. I don't hate it. It's you can tell with 3 and 4 that there's not a lot of material to keep going with here. And then after that, those Hellseeker and what was it called? There's one called Deader. There's one called Hell World. There's one called I can't remember. There's several, right? There's several. Judgment. There's another one called Revelation. Yeah, Hellraiser Revelation. A lot of those scripts, I don't think any of them were actually Hellraiser scripts. They were decent scripts that somebody wrote for a totally different horror movie, and the studio bought them and said, "Hey, we're going to put Pinhead in your horror movie and turn it into a Hellraiser film." So that's why a lot of those movies are pretty terrible. And you know what? Even some of those movies are watchable. Some of them are more watchable than others. You know, they're not all terrible. I almost stuttered when I said that because they're not great either. Jimmy Dunn says all Rob's movies are excruciating, and his talentless hack wife makes them even worse. I'm not a big Sherry Moon Zombie fan, man. To me, she just plays the same character over and over again, and like I guess Baby is what she's playing. But even in the other movies like 31 and Lords of Salem is probably her best performance, I would say. Uh, she's just not my favorite, man. I understand why people like her. I mean, and kudos to her and Rob for doing what they do. They have a solid fan base, and but yeah, I don't. It's like with Eli and Lorenza Izzo, or some of the other ones we've seen. We just saw John Krasinski and Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place, and I guess A Quiet Place 2, where he directs, and she's kind of the star. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't have a lot of comment about that. I think good for them. That's what I think. I'm glad that it's working for them. But when you cast your wife in every movie that you make, and nobody else casts your wife in any movie that they ever make, then there's something crazy about that. The only thing I will say is, yeah, go back to I think like 2003, maybe somewhere around there. There's a remake of the Toolbox Murders, and that has Sherry Moon Zombie in it. I think Angela Bettis too, from May. So yeah, that was actually a really good remake. I enjoyed that one quite a bit. I mean, it's a B movie, but I enjoyed it. Um, so here we are, and DJ says send me a link for the PayPal. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I'll get to you on that, man, later on after I get through with this video. Martin says 13 Ghosts is good. Love the backstory for each ghost. George Rogers says, I do not like Sherry Moon Zombie at all. I don't think she's a good actress, man, but that's just me. Like, she almost changed my mind in Lords of Salem because I thought that for me, that's Rob's best movie, even though, like, Rob takes a lot from everybody. You talk about people taking from other people. Rob takes scenes from other movies, and he doesn't even care. And even Lords of Salem is if you want to, I don't want to call it a ripoff. It's not a ripoff, but it's an homage to all that like Satanic Panic stuff of the '70s and stuff. But that's the only one for me where she's passable. I'll say this: in Three from Hell, I thought that her character Baby got a little better. Seems like the character got a little better and she got a little better. But maybe that's just me. And Queen says she adores Sherry Moon, and a lot of people do, man. There's nothing wrong with that. And she says there is an amazing tribute music video to her on YouTube. And George says Lords of Salem was the only movie I tolerate her in. Yeah, I get that. And Martin says great vid. And Sherry Moon, cool as fuck, says Queen. Yeah, I mean, they have a fan base for a reason. It's not, I mean, it's easy for a lot of us to sit back here and be like, oh, that's not this. Or my problem with Rob is just that he's an asshole. Let's be honest. He lies about shit. He has screwed over a lot of his fans with his Kickstarter projects, and that's a well-known fact. He has straight up lied. Like he straight up told a lie about John Carpenter that was proven to be a lie. And he said that he's never seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Or what? Are you fucking joking me? There's no way, dude. He ripped half of that movie apart and put it in House of a Thousand Corpses. I mean, there's scenes that are almost like way too exact. And he's trying. I never saw that movie. It never came to my mind. Yeah, anybody? Oh, come on, man. Don't do that. You got Bill Moseley in the fucking movie. He was in Texas Chainsaw 2. Come on, man. You're gonna sit there and pull that bullshit and lie. Come on. I asked Caroline Williams about that. She played Stretch in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and I got to talk to her in Kansas City, Kansas City Crypticon, talked to her, and she said, yeah, she's like, Jay, I'm going to tell you right now, she's like, they say it's homage, but that's really just a French word for theft. And I laughed my ass off about that. That's why I tell that story, but yeah, it's not gone unnoticed, some of the stuff that Rob's done. And Steven said Sherry's not a great actress, but she's cool. And DJ said watching Salem's Lot tonight. Which one you watching, man? The 78? I think it's 70. Is 78, guys? 79? You watching that one or are you watching the 2004 with Rob Lowe? Let us know, man. So let's, and of course, here we come to my beautiful wife, Regina DeCorley, and she says, Eden Lake is a frustrating mess. If a bunch of brats are bothering you during your romantic time, just leave. Two, if you're too stupid to leave and a bunch of brats think they're going to fuck with you, beat the shit out of the brat who's leading the other brats and then leave. There were so many parts of this film where the adults could have flipped the tables, but for some reason they were scared They were scared of a bunch of brats. And yeah, we watched that movie together a few times, and she's made these comments to me personally, like while we're watching it. And I like the movie, but I understand what she's saying. Yeah, like, dude, I mean, that fucking kid that thinks he's a badass. I can't remember his name. Jack Connell, I think, is his name. The actual character or actor. I would have hit that fucking kid. So I would have broke his nose and like smashed that motherfucker. Just obliterated, blood everywhere. I would. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. And like but here's the crazy thing. You say that, and then you realize, go back and look. Eden Lake is based on an amalgamation of true stories that actually happen in Britain. Like their kids are. We think our kids are badass and out of control. Their kids don't even have handguns and shit, and they go around killing people. They will stab you, beat you to death with a tree limb, set you on fire in the middle of the street. Their kids have done some bad shit, and that's what was going on. Like there was a controversy about how out of control some of these kids had gotten, and there were several different stories about people being hurt by kids, and they made an amalgamation of that and created Eden Lake. So I don't know. You know, in my mind, that kid comes at me, I'm busting that motherfucker's ass. But in reality, like you don't know, like 10 of them get on you, 12 of them. Nah, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of all of them too, because that's the way I believe. You have to keep that belief. Greg Bench says 2020 had a slew of films that gave me the feeling of I needed more. Sometimes simple is key, yet other times don't hold back. And I kind of agree with that, man. There's a lot of good 2020 films, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in 10 years from now, right? 10 years from now is when we're going to know, which I very seriously doubt I'll be here 10 years from now, but I'm sure you guys will get to see it. They'll be like, you know, are any of these films that we saw in 2020 going to be iconic in 2030? I don't know, man. Like there was a lot. There was well over 300 films that came out, 300 horror films. There was, I originally had a list of like 276 that I thought were worth talking about. I cut that list down to like 140 that I thought I wanted to recommend to people or different audiences. And then I cut that down to 75 and I just did a top 75 for the year. It's on here. I did the top 20 video. And then in the description, I put 21 through 75, my favorites from the year. And for me, I don't know, maybe like, I like Possessor from Brandon Cronenberg, but in 10 years, do I think people are going to look at that like Videodrome from his dad? I don't think so. I just don't. And the other one that for me has a chance is Synchronic from Benson and Moorhead, Aaron Benson and I want to say Josh Moorhead or Josh Benson and Aaron Moorhead. That movie I think has a chance, but that's one of the only ones I can. Synchronic. If you guys haven't seen it, it was my favorite film of 2020. I'm a sucker for this one. I don't know why, like a good buddy story, and this one was a good buddy story. It had great actors in it too. Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan give their best performances. Both of them, it's the best performance they've ever given. And that's saying something with Anthony Mackie because that dude's given a bunch of good performances already. And DJ says he's watching the old one with David Soul, arguing who is better, Boris Karloff or Bela Lugosi. Weighing guys, who's the best vampire? I don't know who was better. I enjoy both those guys a lot. I mean, Boris was there's a God damn it, I can't remember what Boris's actual name is, but there's a Friday the 13th the series episode where a guy is a famous actor, and he has to kill somebody every now and then. Of course, that's the way those episodes work. He has to kill somebody every now and then to get his face pretty again, right? Because it starts to get all twisted up. And the guy takes Boris Karloff's name, and it's just like they were tortured souls in some way, especially with Bella. Man, Bella was an addict and a bunch of terrible stuff. I'm sure a lot of you have seen Ed Wood, you know all that. Um, but which one was better as far as acting? Like I would probably, uh, I hate when I have to do this, people, but I would probably say Lon Chaney Jr. between the three of those. But Boris is probably the best actor. I mean, Bella was so cheesy. I think Boris really appreciated it when he got to act, right? Because in Frankenstein, by Bride of Frankenstein, he's a little bit more like you fix. You know what I mean? He's a little bit more. He gets to do a little bit more with the character. I think his career went like that as it went further. He got to do more and more and more. And so yeah. And Justin says, "Have you seen Evil Dead?" Yeah, dude, I love Evil Dead. All the Evil Deads. Um, DJ says, "I love Bruce Campbell," and DJ says, "Great show, great choice. Shop smart. Dark Man." Yeah, Darkman. Bruce Campbell was in Darkman for like 1 second, right? And it sucks because Sam Raimi wanted him to play Darkman. And the studio said no, and they ended up going with Liam Neeson, which was a great choice too. You can't argue with that. Um, wow, we are still. Stanley Eisman says, "Okay, here we go. I've never been a huge fan of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, but I actually prefer its sequels. I like the original. I like it quite a bit, man. I love the sequels too. The first one I ever saw was part two. I've told this story 100 times, but my dad went. We have in the country they have what they call sale barns. It's really just a flea market, right? And my dad went and bought a crate full of videotapes and brought it home. And one of them was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And it was in like a case, right? And when I opened it, on the inside, it wasn't Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. It was A Nightmare on Elm Street Part Two, Freddy's Revenge. So that was the first Freddy movie that I saw, and then I went back from there. And a lot of people say, "Well, that's the worst one," and that's where for me it'll never be the worst one because it's the first one I saw. But three is great. I love New Nightmare. I think you can make an argument for four being pretty good, uh, just because Lisa Wilcox, man, 4 and 5. Lisa Wilcox is badass. Love her. She gave me my first interview. Lisa gave me my first interview when I first started doing this shit. I'll say 7 years ago. Before that, I was just doing groups and I was writing for Movie Pilot Horror, and I wasn't trying to like do interviews and do other stuff like that. But yeah, she's like the sweetest person and never had a lick of fucking plastic surgery and still is like an amazingly beautiful woman after all these years. Um, Maybe even more beautiful now than she was in the movie. I don't know. Um, James Deadpool Phillips, this is one of our top contributors in the group. And he says The Descent is a mediocre movie with irritating characters, and the spoiler stuff was totally unnecessary and lame. No idea why it's so beloved on this sub. I literally had to double check if it's the same movie I remember watching when I first discovered how great everyone here thinks it is. I'll say this though, the original UK ending was more memorable for me. Well, I mean, yeah, I get that that's your opinion, and I can understand why you feel that way. But I like The Descent. I think a lot of people do. It definitely has an audience. So yeah, that's a hot take there from James, and he's got another one here. It says Funny Freddy is better than Scary Freddy. I kind of like my Freddy in the middle, if that doesn't sound too terrible, right? I like it when he's funny. I mean, but I don't like him to be a stand-up comic. I don't want him to just be funny all the time. I want to actually be scared of him or have him. No, I'm not going to be scared of him, but have him be, intimidating or menacing or whatever. You want a evil Freddy to some degree, and sometimes funny Freddy can be evil. So there's a good mixture there that you have to get. Regina says that she doesn't. She's another one going after Rosemary. She doesn't understand why Rosemary's Baby is so much loved. It's literally one of the most boring movies I've ever seen. And Leah says that pregnancy is the scariest part of that movie. That's funny. And Joreen, I'm reading it all at once. George Rogers says the Maureen Prescott backstory is more intriguing than any of the death scenes in Scream 3. I actually agree with you, man. Scream 3 was a pretty big drop off from the first two. And Joe Cadero says Return of the Living Dead is the best horror comedy of all time. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you guys. I like part 2 more. I like Return of the Living Dead part 2 more. And I even like part 3 more than that. I really like part 3. Queen, they just hit your comment. YouTube just hit your comment because you used a word that they do not like for people to use, and I'm not going to repeat that one because I don't want to get hit too. So they're not going to let me post that comment or let that comment post. My favorite horror comedy of all time, it's a Young Frankenstein, but recently I would have to say What We Do in the Shadows, the movie. I love that movie. I watch it, and I'll do watch parties of it and stuff like that all the time in the group. I just love that movie. I like the show too. Yeah, it doesn't even bother me that they're different or whatever. I really love it. Hilarious stuff. Leah says real life horror like The Girl Next Door, and we need to talk about Kevin, is way scarier than a guy chasing teenagers through the woods. Yeah, it is scarier because it's something you might have to deal with. Nobody, Jason or Freddy, they're never going to get after. That's never going to happen. We know that. We're all adults, right? But, you might fucking have a kid like Kevin that you have to deal with. The Girl Next Door is based on a true story. So those are more terrifying. And I always say that, like, there's the movies that people say, nothing scares me anymore. Nothing's scary anymore. And I'm like, you're 35 fucking years old. What's supposed to scare you? Once you realize everything is make-believe, what's supposed to scare you? And so only thing I can think of that's supposed to scare you is like, serial killer movies serial killer movies don't scare me because nobody's looking for like a 5'11" guy who weighs 200 pounds and has brown hair and brown eyes. There's nobody out here driving in an ice cream truck looking for me, so I'm fine. And I'm not in any danger. I'm not like 17 years old, blonde hair, blue eyed girl. I'm not in any danger. So the other films I think that actually should scare people are animal attack movies like Backcountry. People are so lost in themselves, they don't realize that there are still places in this world where your ass is food. You can become food very quickly, right? And sharks and bears and tigers, they don't give a shit what your job is. They don't care if you're an accountant or if you just made the motion picture of the year, if you're a director or a musician. They don't care what you are. You're food to them. That's all that you matter to them if you get in the wrong place at the wrong time. So those are the movies that actually scare me. I don't get scared from horror movies, but I enjoy them because I think that they are really cool, like stories about the human condition that we'll probably never get to see played out, right? Like a lot of us are never, like the Freddy stuff, that's never going to happen to us. So it's fun to see what happens. And in horror to me has like the biggest themes, the biggest stakes and all that stuff. I really love it. So, that's why it's not because it scares me. If I was scared of it, I don't know if I could watch it as much as I do. And Scott Workman says Lost Boys is not a good film. And Hellraiser is way overrated. Terrifier is terrible. Yes, Art Clown is creepy. Okay, we got to go back here. I got to start in on something. Lost Boys is not a good film. I won't say it's not a good film. I'll say it's not my favorite vampire film. It's not even my favorite vampire film from 1987. My favorite 1987 vampire film is going to be Near Dark. And Hellraiser is way overrated. I don't think it's overrated, dude, because I think if you go back, just like the story behind Hellraiser is pretty amazing. Like what it took for Clive to be able to make that movie. And it was his first time directing. He's directing that movie and writing Nightbreed or Cabal at the same time. And, Richard Branson, the guy that owns Virgin Airlines, Records, all that stuff, he was originally going to invest in Hellraiser, and it was going to be this huge, like, big budget thing. And then he pulled all his money out once he read the script. So Clive was just left with what he could get from the studio, and what he could put in himself. And for me, it's not overrated. I understand some people don't love it, and Clive to have the vision to change his own story, man. Because like every time somebody changes a Stephen King story, he loses his fucking mind about it, unless he's the one that does it. And Clive, he just went into it and said, look, everyone's not going to appreciate my story visually unless I change it. So he changed the story quite a bit. and I thought it worked. He says Terrifier is terrible. Yes, Art the Clown is creepy, but he's annoying. He has no motivation. Look, I get that too. Yeah, Terrifier is terrible, but I always thought that's what it wanted to be, right? Like that's what it was. It was laughing at itself, and it's like, yep, this is a B movie slasher. You either like it or you don't, and some people don't. But and he said I hate it that its showpiece kill is basically stolen from the superior bone saw. He means bone tomahawk. He says bone saw tomahawk. Bone tomahawk. Yeah, with Kurt Russell and all those guys. And that was a fun movie too. Like you want to talk about a slow burn? That movie's a slow burn, but it's worth it. Uh, he says some Stephen King adaptations are painful to watch. Cujo, Children of the Corn, Maximum Overdrive. What? Come on, man, you're killing me here. Silver Bullet. I'll go with Children of the Corn. I can kind of see that one a little bit, but I like Cujo, man. Cujo to me is like fear, dude. That woman. I mean, like you had at some point you had to fight the dog, right? So that's where that comes in. Maximum Overdrive is terrible, but it's terrible and I love it. You know, it's got the great soundtrack. It's got Emilio Estevez. It's such a fun '80s movie. Silver Bullet. I mean, Corey Haim and Gary Busey when he was still Gary Busey. He wasn't crazy yet. He's still a good actor. I love that movie. He says I also detest found footage genre. There are a few exceptions, but most of them are garbage. He says, and this isn't a horror tale, but it needs to be said. I fucking despise Forrest Gump. That felt good. Good, man. I'm glad you got to purge, Scott. What are we calling him on here? Movie Drive. I'm glad you got to purge, Scott. But yeah, you know, like I like a lot of found footage is probably one of my favorite subgenres. But before you skim me alive, let me explain. It's for the same reason. It's because so many of them are so bad that you have to dig through these huge piles. But when you do find one that's good, they're usually pretty amazing. Because the whole thing about found footage is you have to have an original idea for why we're watching this. How did this footage get found? What is the lead up that causes this to be a found footage movie? And so many of those just do the Blair Witch thing over and over. That when you find one that's original, it has an original plot line or a setup, that's when it's really fun. So yeah. Let's go back here and read some of these comments. Whoa, we got behind on these. DJ says he likes the original Nightmare better, but the remake actually wasn't too bad. I think that's what he's talking about. Maybe he didn't say what movie he was talking about. Might have been talking about Evil Dead. George says, I met Mark Patton last year. Great guy. Very appreciative of his fans. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. Went through a lot too, didn't he, man? Very sad that, you know, that kind of happened. Joyce says, I still have a crush on Lisa Wilcox. She's just a genuine person, man. Like, I like Caroline Williams, but I'm gonna be honest with you. When I met her, she's very much like a diva, dude. She's still like think she's like a, you know, big box office actress, and she was kind of a little bit hard to work with at times, especially like she wanted to sit in certain, I mean, just crazy stuff, man. But Lisa was just like, oh yeah, what do you want to do? Let's do it. And I talked to her in email before I got there, and I'm so nervous to talk to her face to face because she was the first person I ever interviewed, and she was just so welcoming. And I screwed the interview up. I had a voice recorder that I didn't even know how to work right. I got the interview, but it sounded terrible. I ended up posting it to a couple places, but it was terrible. But just the experience was awesome, and to get to talk to her and hang out with her for a minute. She's so like she'll be standing in line getting concessions and talk to you. She doesn't care. You know what I mean? Just a great person. Uh, Queen says Karen Black is one of my all-time favorites. Martin says Liam Neeson played the most mental film role ever in Darkman. Everything about that film is mad. Yeah, I really love the scene, like the end of that movie where he's hanging from the helicopter and they're dragging him all through the city and it's like slamming him against buildings and he hits a freaking truck head on and just flies up over it. It's so funny because they're like, oh, Sam Raimi, man, like he's got that in him. He's got um, that wacky edge to him. You see it in an Army of Darkness, and then like even Drag Me to Hell. He's got that little bit of wackiness. I mean, he doesn't like to just go full uh, genre all the time. And like a lot of people hate Spider-Man 3 because of that, but it works in his horror films. And DJ says I'm going to get laughed at, but my secret movies to watch are Puppet Master, Dolls, Silence, and of course the Bloodstone movies. Hey, I like those, man. All those are pretty good. You know, Puppet Master movies are still fun to watch for me. And man, YouTube is like starting to slap a lot of these comments down, guys. T. Morgan says Return of the Living Dead 2 more than one. Blasphemy. Yeah, I like it more, man. I can't help it. That's just me. To me, it's funnier. I don't know why. The first one, like, it's kind of cheesy. I think I'm not big on sleazy. That's what it is. I thought the first one was a lot more sleazy than it was fun. And Scott says Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I think that's for the comedies. George says they did nothing to build up any of the characters in Scream 3, so the deaths weren't meaningful. Yeah, that movie was like, it was. I'm glad they waited a long time to make 4 because to me 4 was like a triumphant comeback. Hopefully 5 will be good too. That's the thing with those Scream movies. I like them. I think they should make one every 10 years, and I think what they need to do is let the technology change. Let the technology change so that way the way the kids talk to each other, the way Ghostface gets after them, it's all different, and you can put a new twist on it every time. But you have to give it space. You have to let it breathe. Um, and DJ said, "Geez, it's the last name." Steve says, "I stopped watching horror for 2 weeks after watching the girl." Yeah, that one's rough, man. Written by Jack Ketchum, based on the book written by Jack Ketchum, of course. And if you ever read Jack Ketchum or watch any of the movies based on his books, yeah, they're all graphic. Jack is one of the best when it comes to graphic violence. I mean, just mind blowing violence. Like it all started with Off Season. Go back if you guys ever get a chance to read Off Season. Off Season had a sequel called Offspring, which they made a movie version of that in 2009. They have never made a movie version of Off Season because they say it's too hard. They say it's so gory you couldn't film a movie version of it. I don't believe that. I mean, we've seen a Serbian film, so I think that's just kind of a cop out. But yeah, the woman, that stuff. He's got other stuff too that I like a lot. Red, The Lost, great stuff from Jack Ketchum. If you ever get a chance to check him out, um, he died, I think, in 2017, but just a great writer. And just like for me, there are certain guys like Stephen King is the great overarching detail guy. He'll spend 30 pages talking about what it looks like in Maine on Thursday in 1971. He'll do that, and you kind of fall into where he's going and you drift away in it. Dean Koontz is the psychopath guy, man. Dean Koontz writes psychopaths like nobody else, and he can just churn them out, and you can read these great, intensity, velocity, great psycho thriller books. And then, of course, for me with Jack is the grab. Now, there's other guys that do it. J.F. Fernandez wrote a crazy book called Survivor. There's what's Ed? What's the guy's name? I'm trying to think of. He wrote Header. I can't remember, but there's a lot of guys that do it. But for me, Jack is just, man, his prose, the way he writes it, with the graphic violence, just makes it come off the page. And when they made that movie, they really broke everybody with that movie. The Girl Next Door. A lot of people I've met have said they could watch anything but that. And so we're still going through here. And comments, man, I'm never gonna get off of this. I'm never gonna get off. I didn't realize I was gonna be on here with you guys this long. It's okay. He says, TJ says, I'm gonna stump everyone here. Who has seen a chiller thriller movie called The Baron? I'm not sure if I've seen that one or not. It sounds familiar, but it sounds like it might be from like the late 60s, 70s, something like that, early 70s. Can't remember, man. You got me on that one. DJ says Near Dark is good. Another movie that needs a bigger budget. Platoon. I wish I could make that movie today. Great storyline, horrible lack of money. Platoon didn't have much money for that. I didn't know that. Nick Carroll says, has YouTube given you any strikes yet for these uploads? Or are these uploads non-copyright protected anymore? I'm just curious. Also, thank you for the uploads. Well, here's the way it works, man. I'll upload something, and if it's got a copyright thing against, I don't get a copyright strike for uploading it. Because here's the thing you do when you upload something, don't publish it. Just upload it. Once it uploads, let them tell you then whether it's approved or not. Because if you go ahead and publish it, there's a chance you could get a copyright strike. If you take it down then before you publish it, then you know and you don't have any problems. But the stuff that I have on YouTube is all approved. All the money that from the ads, there's ads in it. All the money that goes from the ads goes to the copyright holder. I don't get any of it. 1 cent. I got 1 cent. That's what I got off Tales from the Crypt. All 93 episodes. They paid me 1 cent. It's worth. I don't care. It's not my money. I'm not trying to get money out of it. It belongs to those people. I just want to be able to share it with people. To me, it's just awesome that I can share it with fans. and I can use it to get fans to come over and watch the other stuff we got. So yeah, I don't get anything out of it. I get to sit here and watch them. I'm a fan too. I like to watch them too. I've seen all 93 numerous times. I still watch them. And DJ says they hit DJ's comment here. He says Dog Soldiers was a great original storyline. Spoonie has the best fight scene ever. Ha ha ha. Yeah, they hit yours there, DJ. I'm gonna go ahead and click on it. I don't think they're gonna have a problem with that. If they have, it was up to me whether I approved it or not, and it didn't sound like it was that bad to me. Scott says, I do agree with you. When found footage is done right, it's great. Troll Hunter is one of my favorite movies. It's a good one, yeah. And great question. Nick Carroll says, I'm super curious. Jay is awesome for putting these up there, though. They're bringing me back to my childhood for sure. Yeah, we got all the Friday the 13th, the series, too. We also have Twilight Zone, the 86 version of the Twilight Zone, and I have every single one of the 2002 version of the Twilight Zone, even though they're not quite as good as the older ones. I still like them a lot. We have some Kolchak. We have some, what's the guy's name? Why can't I think of it right now? Ray Bradbury. We got Ray Bradbury Theater, a lot of those episodes up. I don't put up anything that I'm going to get a copyright strike on. I won't put it up, and because that's stealing, man. For one thing, besides the fact that you're doing something they don't want you to do, it's stealing. It is. And if the money can get sent to the copyright holder, good. You'll think they would appreciate that money. I'm sure they do. They're not getting a ton off of that stuff anymore. And girls love horror too. That's my baby. Regina, she says true crime is one thing. Making a movie about it for other people's entertainment is another. That's horrible, right? DJ says, no. We have totally agreed. We are never going to Maine. Yeah. We don't have to go to Maine. You can read 30 pages of a Stephen King book and you're in Maine. And Steven says, I agree, Nick. Watching these videos brought back a lot of childhood memories. I loved horror as a kid. Yeah, that's why it's up there, guys. That's why it's up there. DJ says, Lost Platoon, voice activated TV. I got you, man. I got you on that one now. Because when you said Platoon, I thought you were talking about Oliver Stone's Platoon. I was like, that seemed like it was a big budget to me for that time. And Nick says, got you. Thanks for the answer. You're doing a service. And Nick says, Tales from the Crypt is what's doing it for him. And DJ says the Baron is super old, but it's not scary. It's not bloody like today's. It's more of a Poe type suspense. Hey, those are great, man. I like Edgar Allan Poe. And so I'm going to try to finish up here, guys. Try to get through this. I planned on being here for 45 minutes. We're 2.5 hours in. And I just kind of want to get everyone's comments in there because it was so great to actually comment. Let's see how far we have to go. Boy, it's not looking good. Here we go. All right, we're going to try to knock it out real quick. Let me refresh this because there's been more people comment since the last time that we got on here. And we still got about 10 comments. I'm going to try to get through them all. I'm just, I hate to do that. I'm not going to skip people. Next time I'll know better, and we'll split it. We'll do 2 episodes. We'll have to come up with a new topic for next week, though, and I'm thinking about that, too. I've been thinking about that all day. I wanted to see how good this was going to work. And cruising down. We got all these comments here. I'm trying to get through them. I think we're getting close. I don't know. Okay, Kevin Nicholson says the Twilight series has killed the vampire as the evil movie monster. I don't know. Like I said, I've seen a couple in the last few years that were pretty good, but I understand what you're saying, yeah. Twilight being what it is, but for me, Lost Boys isn't much different than Twilight. I mean, a lot of the vampire stories revolve around that kind of romantic, incubus stuff. Paul Contreras says the remake of Child's Play was surprisingly good. Remakes don't get the love they deserve. I agree with that. Pearl Morgan says too many discussions to talk of underrated female directors and the separation between horror and thriller. I'm finding more horror and chills and thrills in foreign films, plus the fact how being both a werewolf vampire fanatic, a lot of the recent movies between both creatures have been letdowns. Yeah, I understand that. Naming all the mentioned above has directed creativity gone out the door. No, I think we kind of talked about that already, and I don't think creativity's gone. I mean, I think it is what it is. I mean, everyone's a product of what they've seen and what they've heard and what they've, you can't have if you don't have a base, if you don't have a palette to choose your colors from, you can't paint a picture. So everything is derivative. Everyone takes from the past, but uh, I don't think it's all uncreative. And she says, why are so many directors falling into unnecessary remakes rather than new stuff? I don't know. I don't know. That's a studio thing. The studios want the remakes more than the directors do. They take them because it's a job and it's where to get their name out there. These are my topics. So then certain films remade. I don't know. I hope whatever I said above helps in discussion. Yeah, it was all great, Pearl. Thank you for contributing. You're always, we love hearing from you. And Scott said, Scott, jump scare does not constitute being scared. Exactly. Exactly, Scott. A jump scare is a reflex reaction. I still have every now and then, they'll still get me every now and then. Like I'll jump, you know what I mean? I'll be like, damn it. When I do it, I'm like, why did I jump from that? It'll be something crazy, stupid, like the Bye Bye Man or something. I'll jump. I'm like, why did I do that? I just ruined it. But anyway, he says it's a reflex reaction. It can happen in any type of movie. Most of the time, they are gimmicky. Yeah, they are. They're bad gimmicky. And being scared is a feeling of overall dread. It needs to be built with tension and atmosphere. A jump scare breaks that tension. If you use them too often, there's no buildup. That's right. And that's why John Carpenter didn't use a lot of damn jump scares with Halloween and The Thing and stuff like that. I mean, you're going to have jump scares in horror movies. That's never going to end. But Carpenter learned from the master. He learned from Hitchcock. And so he learned how to build tension. And yeah, so then we also have DeAndre Walker, who contributes a lot, and he says, I have come to defend the honor of the Resident Evil live action film franchise. Well, you don't have to defend it with me. I mean, they're not my favorite movies, but I like some of them. I think one was really good. Three was pretty good. Uh, Marty says, Marty Fleming Exorcist really loses a lot of its shock value after the first viewing. It hasn't aged well for pure enjoyment. Exorcist 3 holds up a lot better. I agree with you, man. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I mean, as far as like shock value, yeah, after the first view. And to me, The Exorcist loses nothing. I gain more from it every time I watch it. But as far as shock value, yeah, it loses a lot of the shock value after the first one. Marsha Palushek says that Van Helsing was just The Walking Dead, but with vampires. But it was a long time before The Walking Dead. I mean, like what? When did Van Helsing come out? Like 2004 or 24? I don't know. Um, so yeah, that was an opinion. I mean, like I don't understand exactly what you mean there, Marcia. You're gonna have to hit me with a message and explain that to me. Kevin Patterson contributes a lot. Says the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Dawn of the Dead are vastly overrated. A lot of people have said that tonight. And he says horror is a subjective term. And if I think Scarface or Goodfellas is horror because of some of the horrific moments in the film, let me class it as that. I talked about that earlier. So yeah, great stuff there. Randy Spurlock says Art the Clown is actually a mime, and using a gun in that movie was a mistake. I like the fact that he used the gun in the movie, only because I didn't expect it. I did not see that coming, and I liked it because I didn't see it coming. Normally that never happens, but Art just got sick of the shit and went over and shot her. Sorry, that's the truth about it. And she also says Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow is the same story as Pumpkinhead. Ah, a little bit, but not exactly. Norman Plume says, Hi, Jay. Hot takes? Well, I'm not sure. I'm pretty accepting of stuff. Cannibal movies, Jungle, Holocaust. Well, there's actually one called Jungle Holocaust. He's got a comment in between them. I thought it confused me for a minute because there's actually one before Cannibal Holocaust called Jungle Holocaust from like 3 years before that. It was, then they all started with the Mondo movies where they're talking about these weird tribal rituals and stuff like that, right? And then it went into cannibal movies, and then it went into extreme cannibal movies because Jungle Holocaust, it has some cannibal stuff in it, but it's also just a lot about surviving in the jungle, right? And all these terrible things that can happen to you. And we're like Cannibal Holocaust is straight up nastiness. It does have a great message. I think Cannibal Holocaust does have a big message in it, and that is that sometimes the monsters aren't under the bed; they're in the mirror, right? And he said, but for his opinion, they're not narrative based, nor do they scare. That's true. They don't have great stories to them. It's just kind of like a situation you drop a character into. He's like, there's no, and suddenly to me, they hold no significance in the genre whatsoever. I can't say that, man. I like them. I like them. I like my cannibal movies. Not all of them. I like Thoreau. I like Holocaust. Holocaust is hard to watch, yeah, but there's a big message there. I think Thoreau is more fun than Holocaust is, and Jungle Holocaust and Mountain of the Cannibal God and Eaten Alive. Those films, Mountain of the Cannibal God is like where art meets trash, right? Because you got Stacy Keach and Ursula Andress in a zombie movie. So it was like a point in time where they're like, hey, maybe we should take this concept and up it a little bit and see if we can make some money off of it. And Lee Vort says vehicle horror is awesome. Duel, of course, that was a great movie. The Car, Wheels of Terror, Maximum Overdrive, Christine, etc. I love all those movies. William Kusamati says, I find the Friday the 13th series to be greater than the Friday the 13th film franchise. Wow, that's a look. I love that series, man. I have every episode here on the channel for everybody to watch, but I can't say that I can put it above the film franchise. And it got cut early too because of all the Christian parent groups and stuff. When they first put it on, it was on at like 11 and it got popular. So they dropped it to like 10 and then 9 by the third season. And that's where everybody was still awake. And all these Christian conservatives saw it and they got pissed off and eventually get cut. Our last comment comes from Brian Brady, who says the Evil Dead remake is better than Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. And I don't know if I would agree with that, but it's a good comment. And guys, with that, I am going to finish up. I got to take Benny outside. So poor boy, he's been sitting here this whole time, and Daddy needs to take him out. He's got to use the bathroom. And but just to wrap up, DJ says, love this channel. Hubby and I are watching and fighting for the comment to you. And Steven says, absolutely, Nick. Tales from the Crypt's favorite show ever. And okay, but it seems like writing for movies is mundane, remake after remake. Yeah, I get that. And George Romero, my God, John Carpenter, he's amazing. Raimi, Will, I love. Bruce Campbell, Lance Henderson, and Bill Paxton are such underrated, brilliant horror actors. All right, guys, we made it. I want to thank everybody for showing up and for showing out, for hanging out with me and having a good time. I love you guys. And as always, we will talk to you the next time. Got something worth talking about. Bye.